any moments for either of you where you just thought, God, this is really, really harder than I wanted it to be? Ashley, I remember you emailed me one particular story of someone who'd been considerably less than complimentary to you personally and basically told you to fuck off, I think.
Yes.
Who was? I mean, that can't be easy if you're trying to write the side of someone's story that's in a way beneficial to them, and then being totally told, they don't care. That must be quite hard. Well, tell us the story about what it was first.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. I mean, I won't name names because I don't want to put this guy aside unnecessarily. But you might have an idea who it is. Anyway, I did over 150 interviews for the book, so interviews were essential to giving the book the emotional heft and the historical heft that you need in order to make it convincing and authentic. So there were a couple of guys in Barbados that I really wanted to speak to because Barbados was the rebel.
And we're back, and you'll have to wait till tea to find out what happens in that exciting interview with Ashley Gray, I think it is. Tony was doing and did a little while ago about his book, which was all about those West Indies cricketers who went down to South Africa back in the, 80s? Was it 80s? I can't remember, 70s even? Anyway, it's been a horrific morning for England. They have lost 4 wickets. 4 wickets for the addition of 53 runs. However, Rory Burns is still there. He only scored 13 runs this morning. But he's doing his best in the Devon Conway role. And, England need him desperately. Ollie Robinson has come to the crease and has given him some welcome support after some quite dreadful batting. And some good bowling, let's say. Colin de Grandon is going to open the bowling, and he's around the wicket to Burns, who leaves, as he did for much of the morning, outside the off-stump. Ball goes through to the keeper. I am joined by Forthy, and I'm hoping for the first time ever, it seems like. There he is, smiling in his lounge. The glorious visage of none other than Grubby78. I haven't been on with you for ages, Grubby.
Hendo, it's always a joy.
It is a joy, and I'm going to be on with you lots this afternoon. I've made it special afternoon for us all. Onto the front foot comes Burns and drives through backward point. He'll pick up a single. There is a man back there, Devon Conway, I think it is. He's been in the outer, as they say, most of the day. Ollie Robinson is on 16 from 48 balls. He was given out, caught at short leg just before the lunch break, as Mitchell Santner got a go. But it was not out. It missed the bat by a long way. Michael Goff has had a bit of a nightmare this morning. What do we reckon to that, chaps? Michael Goff having a nightmare.
Yeah, of all people. Did not see that coming.
No, indeed.
Maybe had too much cheese last night. I don't know. I
think it is cheese. Onto the back foot goes Robinson, and he's given width by de Grandon, and he chops that away quite pleasantly behind square down to the tavern stand for 4 runs.
I suppose batsmen and bowlers go through little patches of bad form.
I must have 2 or 3. I need 4.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Umpires do too.
Yeah, bad day at the office. You can have them. At least those have been sorted out by the technology in both instances. De Grandon in again, probing around middle and off. And Robinson is forward to that, talking to himself and signalling the way that the ball was swinging. It goes down the wicket to do a little bit of gardening. 169 for 6. Where have you been, Grubby? What have you been up to?
Oh, eating, drinking, having conversations with various people around the world, that sort of thing.
Okay. De Grandon in again, bowls to Robinson, who defends to mid wicket, or rather to mid on, and there is no run. Who's on Twitter today, this afternoon?
Me.
It's you. Have we been joined by anyone since lunch?
Yeah, Dan Keevy asked us the question, at what point do you think New Zealand has to bowl England out by before a draw becomes a certainty? I mean, I think a draw is very far from a certainty. If England back through until tea.
Yes, 2 slips in the gully as de Grandon is again, and once more onto the back foot. That's a really good shot, though. There is a man now patrolling, but he has to make ground. Wagner falls over in the process, on the boundary edge. They get back 4-2, and Robinson has moved on to 22 in that over. England 171 for 6. They are now just 7 runs from saving the follow-on. Robbie.
I liked your conversation before lunch, chaps, as well. You're talking about Rory Burns not being the most pleasing on the eye, but getting the job done, and someone likened him to the sweepings from the Cadbury factory floor.
Shapes,
Maybe some sort of nickname like Chocolate for the Blind.
Chocolate what?
Chocolate for the Blind.
Chocolate for the blind.
Because they don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We had a long couple of spells from Kyle Jameson and Tim Southey. Tim Southey bowled through until about, it must have been 20 past 12, half past 12, something like that. Jameson swapped ends, started from the nursery end. And so we didn't see a lot of Neil Wagner and de Grandon, but we're going to see both of them within an over of each other straight after the break. Wagner, I think, for the first time bowling from the pavilion end, and that means that he will have the slope taking the ball away from the left-handed batsman. He's got a ring of 3 on the offside. Sorry, he's got a gully, 2 slips, not a backward point. There's an extra cover mid-off, and a man back on sweeping duties. He's in, bowls to Burns down the leg side, and he tries to flick it on his way. He can't make contact. Watling athletically leaps to his right to take that, and there is no
Watling Athletics sounds like a decent football thing. Why was Baird just conducting with his hands there? What's the matter?
Oh, he wants to do jingles. That's what it is. Sorry, yes.
He takes 5 wickets in an over. It was Moida.
Again, having trouble listening to the jingles at my end. Defended firmly up to mid-off by Burns, and there is no run.
Used to be able to get misshapes in my local confectioners, and they were a real treat. There was something transgressive about them, but I suppose picnic would be the next step up, something that has actually got a brand around it, but is still misshapen.
Or knickknacks, the crisp knickknacks.
Ah, yeah, knickknacks, yeah.
Love a knickknack.
So Rory Burns is the picnic bar of our times. Onto the front foot he comes. He's going to get a run through mid-wicket. That probably came off a little bit of nougat or perhaps some toffee. And he's picked himself up a run, 172 for 6.
Ugly on the outside. Ugly on the outside, delicious on the inside.
Well, I'm never really a big fan of the picnic bar. I'm much more into my toffee crisp.
Toffee crisp. Where'd you stand on a crunchie?
I like crunchies, but as I think it was, who is the comedian? I've forgotten his name now. The Cockney comedian that you and I like, Grubby. What's his name?
Flanagan?
Mickey Flanagan. He says the thing about crunchies is you end up eating them twice because most of it gets stuck to your teeth. Wagner in bowls to Robinson, across him in fact, the right-hander, and it's left alone to go through to Watling. Yeah, you do. I mean, they're great crunchies, but to be honest, they're probably not great once you get past sort of 50, and your teeth are beginning to rot horribly.
You just feel every time you have a particularly stout toffee in your mouth that a tooth might be coming with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Bear has launched into this conversation quietly on our chat by saying picnics have got fucking raisins. I like raisins, generally speaking. Now the Bear won't have it. The Bear won't have any fruit. He won't have tomatoes. He just wants meat. Anyway, 2 slips in the gully. In comes Wagner again. Bowls to Robinson, who plays nicely and late. The only thing that worries me about Robinson is he's quite tall, and he seems to. I'm not sure whether he's playing late out of design or whether because it takes him so long to get down to the ball. But it seems to be working for him at the moment.
Oh, he looks
Classic trivia quiz question: is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable?
Well, I got into great trouble at primary school by maintaining it was a vegetable, and they came looking for me. I hid behind the. I had a bet with another boy and claimed I was right, and I was right. Outside the off stump, aims a big drive at that, given the width. Robinson, fair enough to go after it, although perhaps not so early after lunch. It's the end of the over, 172 for 6.
Can I do a quick shout out to my nephew Archie, whose 15th birthday it is today? He won't be listening, he'll be on a bike ride, but I might send him the recording. Happy birthday, Arch. What else? Ravi Nair is with us and saying Rory Burns, brackets, the poor man's chocolate. The blind man's chocolate, I think is what we've agreed on, Ravi. So that's what I'll be going from now on. I think Dan De Castro had also joined us on YouTube over lunch with a very pertinent question, which I now can't read as I've refreshed the page. But hello, Dan.
Hello, Dan. Great that you're all with us, and a happy birthday to Archie. May you pedal away to your heart's content this afternoon. England are going to have to do some rebuilding. They're going to have to bring New Zealand back into the peloton. And is that going too far with my imagery, or does that work? De Grandhomme comes outside the off-start, left alone by the left-handed Rory Burns.
Can you have a peloton of 2 riders? It's a philosophical question.
Well, I was thinking of England and New Zealand as a sort of bulk of riders, really.
Okay.
You think it works on that basis? Maybe. There are lots of depressed England batsmen sitting on the balcony. No one can say anything good to the other because they all failed dismally. De Grandhomme bowls lovely delivery, angled into Burns and then taking it away off the pitch, up the hill. And Burns was well and truly beaten by that. He's not been beaten by a lot today. In fact, he's not played in a lot today. I was thinking, although he didn't score many runs before lunch, there weren't that many scoring opportunities given to him. And he did judge the ball quite well,
true.
I thought.
Just to mix up the comparisons.
As De Grandhomme bowls again, left alone. Yes, carry on.
Perhaps the Lord's balcony could be compared in film terms to the Breakfast Club, and they're in Saturday morning detention.
I've got another parallel for your consideration.
Oh, please.
Are we looking at a bowling partnership, or before lunch, of De Grandhomme as Mike Hendrick and Southey as Ian Botham? So De Grandhomme keeping it tight one end and Southey getting the wickets the other.
Outside the off stump, 2 wide this time from De Grandhomme, left alone. Well, it's funny you should say that, Grubby, because I reckoned that Robinson was a dead match for Mike Hendrick, from what I've seen. I'm hoping that he will go on to be more successful in the sense that Mike Hendrick never got anything more than a 4-fer in Test cricket. And Ollie Robinson missed out on his 5-fer, didn't he, when Stuart Broad dropped his dropped him at mid-off. This is again left alone outside the stump. Previous ball, as you will have gathered from the Bear, just squeezing a jingle in there while we were chatting away, was a no ball.
I've got a funny memory of Mike Hendrick, actually. I think he played in the 79 World Cup final. He was the last man out. And in those days, everyone belted onto the pitch. Maybe I've got it confused with 75. I think it was 79.
Yeah, that could well be the second World Cup, wasn't it? This is forced into the offside, not particularly well fielded by whoever it was. I thought it was...
Well, he's out, and he starts, because in those days all the kids would start running at full. So he starts running towards the back, then realises, hang on, he turns back, grabs one of the stumps, realising it'll probably be worth something in a few years' time.
That's good to think that he's thinking of his future, isn't it? I mean, because it couldn't have been easy to find work. Nothing like as much media around those days. Nicely driven up to mid-off. Going to have to hurry. Gets hit by the ball between the thrower and the wicket. That was Kane Williamson who was doing the work at mid-off. And so Burns takes another single. 174 for 6.
Nice to be on with Grubby. Hello, Grubby. We're reunited in Electric Dreams.
Gorgeous. For those who don't know, Forthy and I used to work together back in the 90s. And it was halcyon days. Lots of reminiscing goes on Facebook, doesn't it? About what great work we used to do and how the world was so much better, etc. But that's just the way things are, isn't it? You always think that the previous generation is better than the one we're currently in. Not always true.
Well, in Latin terms, we are laudatores temporis acti, of course, praisers of time past.
Blimey, that's the first Latin we've had on the programme since Katie Walker. What's going on? Have we got another Latin scholar in our midst? Perhaps.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Oh, we have. Oh, my goodness. Is this your job?
I am a Latin.
You're a Latin teacher.
No, I did it at university.
Oh, okay.
I did classics at university. I still got some memories of it.
How many commentators have done classics? And now a drive from Burns goes between bat and pad as Wagner starts his 15th over. It's taken by Watling, but no inside edge, fortunately enough. But a suggestion that Burns is trying to play a few more shots since lunch. I'm not sure that's wise, because he was doing all right. I suppose he's worried that he'll run out of partners.
That was into a winning position.
Trying to get the game into an interesting position so that it's not too dull for people tomorrow on the so-called final day. Burns is on 75. He's faced 216 deliveries. He keeps flexing at the knees before the ball is delivered, and then he presents the full face of the bat to this one. Nicely played, in fact. But Latham is at extra cover, and he tumbles to his left to do the fielding. And there is no run. England need 4 more runs, and they will have got rid of the albatross on their shoulders about follow-ons and that sort of thing. Not convinced that New Zealand would take that option anyway. But they did have a couple of innings victories in their winter, or their summer, sorry, our winter, series against Pakistan and West Indies. Here is Wagner again, once more, met with a push drive from Burns, but straight up to mid-off. Field placing seems to have been good today as well, doesn't it? They're giving really nothing away. Any comments on that?
Well, Robbie, what do you think? I almost, to be honest, I feel the strength of the bowling as such. They would have probably got 4 wickets if they'd have had 8 third men this morning, but you know.
Yeah, you're probably right. In comes Wagner again. He's got 2 slips. Oh, that's a funny shot played there by Burns, who seemed to start to come onto the front foot and then almost played a cut shot off that front foot, chopping it really away. There is no third man. He might have got a 4 had he got it between Gully and the slips, but he sent it straight to Gully. And so there is.
It's a hard role to play, isn't it? The sheet anchor in a situation like this. You don't want to turn into Paul Collingwood at Adelaide and, you know, end up scoring about 15 runs and everybody collapses around you. That's no good to anyone.
Well, that's the point I made in my report today, which will be coming out later, is that, to get a result, you needed England to go crazy, or something like Adelaide. Onto the front foot comes Burns, plays it down into the ground. And Wagner stretches out his left hand, bats it to the floor, and there is no run.
Very little of note on Twitter about Latin phrases, but quite a bit about chocolate, as you'd expect.
Oh, good.
Oh, great. Excellent.
I reckon the most superior candy bar of all time is Knoppers. I hope I've said that correctly.
Knoppers?
Knoppers, I'm imagining that's German. Whereas Pirate Badshah favours a Reason.
Reason?
Firm favourite. R-I-E-S-E-N. Reason.
Reason. Okay, so that's another German one. Wagner then in to complete his 15th over. Hasn't been scored off in this over, and won't be scored off it at all anyway, as Burns comes forward to that one. It's the end of the over. 174 for 6. Burns has 75. Robinson has 22. Grubster.
And on the other hand, Ravi is trying to take all of the themes since lunch and squeeze them into a single tweet, which is quite entertaining. I should not listen when I'm sleepy. I'm now thinking of Botham and Hendrick escaping the Lord's Breakfast Club in order to chase down the Kiwi peloton with poor man's chocolate spilling out of their pockets.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Isn't it?
That's a pretty good summary of guerrilla cricket through the ages, really, isn't it, I think?
It is quite funny when you go to another country and taste their chocolate. It doesn't taste right, particularly America, of course. A Hershey bar tastes all over the place.
So thin. It's so thin, Hershey bars of chocolate. I mean, you want some proper Cadbury, don't you? Proper hard, tough,
Cadbury
refrigerated
has
Cadbury.
Cocoa content than chocolates around the world. So in one sense, it's sort of poorer quality, but because we're so used to it, we miss it when we go away. And
well,
things like, I love a bit of dark chocolate, which is a bit more meaty, if I can put it that way.
Have you had those dark chocolate milk chocolate hybrids? They're quite good. They're quite nice.
Hybrids. This is dirty talk.
It really is.
Chocolate hybrids.
We have a change of bowling. We've got Spin. We saw an over of it before lunch, but he was bowling from the pavilion end at that point. Santner has now come back on at the nursery end, where he bowled a few overs yesterday and got a little bit of turn. First ball is stroked to short extra cover by Ollie Robinson. He's got Ross Taylor in at slip. Has he got any other close fielders? Not quite sure. Yes, he's got a short square leg, and Robinson is down the wicket, but then when he gets there, almost yorks himself and then rather toe ends it tamely up to mid-on.
Play it, Bear. Play it.
Centenor baby, get some drift into the pads for me. Been an awful good Kiwi. Centenor baby, and dart them in quickly tonight.
Great.
I love that jingle. Love that jingle. The next ball is pretty much a full toss. Low on the bat, it's sent back to the bowler. So we've got a slip, a short square leg, and a short extra. Santner is in, and once more Robinson using his feet, but when he gets there, he just plays it defensively, covers up, and the ball runs back to the bowler.
We're definitely sure that Robinson and Overton are two different people, are they? They seem to bowl and bat in very similar manners.
I think you've discovered England's ploy. No, he's more of a slab, though, isn't he? I think we've referred to Craig Overton as the slab. This is defended up to mid-on. He's not quite square-jawed, is he, Ollie Robinson?
No, I saw Overton referred to as lurch by somebody.
Yes, he's quite lurchish. Or Desperate Dan, as someone said. Defended to short leg. And that's the end of another maiden. England getting stuck a little bit, 174 for 6. Grubby.
Yes, I've got a question on YouTube from Andrew Cook, who says, who would the commentators drop from the New Zealand team when Bolt turns up?
Oh, that is a good question. And they were just discussing that, I think, on the TV before we resumed after lunch.
Really?
And I was wondering about that.
Depends on the pitch, I suppose.
It does, but you think Santner might be vulnerable.
Santner's got to be vulnerable, or you push Jameson up to 7 and you dispense with de Grandhomme. But then de Grandhomme can hold up an end for you really well, can't he? He's a very economical bowler. I think, I mean, it depends on the conditions, but perhaps Santner will lose out if it's a particularly overcast day when they play. Or first get underway. This is flicked up to mid-on. Wagner starting another over. There didn't seem to be too much for Wagner yesterday. Don't know what you chaps saw of it.
No, I'll tell you what, I was thinking, Wagner's one of those cricketers, I couldn't believe he was, 34, 35. I've sort of barely noticed his amazing career, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to... he's like, at some points been the best bowler in the world, and I've sadly barely noticed him.
That's right.
It's really odd.
Yeah, just jumped up the rankings, and you've not really been aware. New Zealand go under the radar so much, being stuck out there in the middle of the Pacific. This is off the pad into the onside. They've run through for what I thought was a leg bye, but maybe he got an inside edge onto that. I think his score has gone up by 1. Let's have another look at this. Didn't see him getting much on that.
People talk about BJ Watling being incredibly underrated, which he is, but Henry Nichols, I looked him up, he's the number 6 batsman in the world.
Yeah,
he's got an average of 44.
Yeah.
He's one of 5 batsmen averaging over 50 in the last 3 years in the world, and I'd barely noticed him. It's awful, really.
It's strange, actually. We talked about Henry Nichols the other day. He has periods. Wagner in again, bowls to Robinson, who leaves that quite close to his off stump. He had a period where he'd gone 13 innings without a 50 in the winter, and people were talking about whether he was going to be dropped or not. And he was actually dropped, I think, 3 or 4 times in his next innings. But he made it pay because he went on to get 174, and then he got another 100 in the next innings against Pakistan. And so it sent his average back up again. So he's been like one of those people where I remember Alistair Cook and both Paul Collingwood, who were sort of in the last chance saloon and then played really well to survive. Wagner in, Robinson aims a drive at this one, but doesn't hit it sweetly enough, rolls up to mid-off.
I guess what you can hold against Henry Nichols is that his average against India and Australia in 13 innings is 16.5, so there's probably be a question mark there.
Yeah, very much so, yes. I mean, well, actually, now he's going to face India in English conditions. That's going to be curious as well, isn't it? Let's have a look at this field. 2 slips in the gully, backward point, extra cover, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket, and a long leg. That's what Wagner's got. He's in from the pavilion end, bowls to Robinson. Robinson just traps this almost under his bat, just outside off stump. Ball bounces out towards extra, and there is no run.
Got a classics question for you, Forth. You do it after this.
Yeah,
now I'm feeling nervous.
Good,
now I'm
yourself.
feeling nervous.
There've been a lot of classics people through the gorilla door, haven't there? And then swiftly out the back one. When we discover your predilection for classics, off you go. Wagner in again, bowls to Johnson. Robinson outside the off stump again through to Watling, and no run. 16 overs bowled by Wagner, none for 43. England 175 for 6. Grubby.
Here is the question from Leah.
Yeah.
Says, do you know what that Vatican journal that named every part of a computer in Latin was called? 40.
No.
Simple answer to that one.
Sorry, I don't. No.
Afraid not. Messi Jez.
Sorry, Leah.
Messi Jez has given us a short cartoon strip which I've retweeted, so you can look at that in your own time. Reason is German for giants, says Leah. So named because they are quite massive.
Oh, so is that would be Kyle? That would be your Kyle Jameson bar of chocolate then?
Yes.
It's called Reason.
Yes, that would be him.
Reason, yeah. And Dan Keevy says American chocolate tastes funny because of the butyric acid. They add it to the milk so it doesn't go sour, I believe. Crikey. And all of that with a Daily Mail link about a story about Hershey's.
What is butyric acid? I'm worried now.
Butyric with a B, I don't know.
Oh,
But it doesn't
butyric.
sound good, does it?
I'm going to look it up. While commentating.
It doesn't sound very flavoursome.
It doesn't, does it? Of all the acids you could have, it doesn't sound great. Oh, it's got a strange. It's got one of those strange formulas when you call it up. Anyway, Santner is in to bowl to Burns, who uses his feet to come down the wicket, and the mid-on is set back a little bit, so he'll take an easy single.
I don't think either me or Grubby would have said now with added butyric acid as a recommendation to our chocolate client.
Oh, well, it's interesting because it's not spelt it's butyric in terms of phonetically, Butyric.
Oh, I was just reading out what Dan Keevy had said. He's if there's a typo, it's his.
Okay, Santner into Robinson, gets a little bit of turn, a little bit of pop there, and he hits Robinson's forward defensive quite high up on the bat. Just a little wander towards square leg, so a hint of that turn that we saw yesterday. He took one past Root's bat, really fantastic delivery. So if he can find that spot again, could be tricky. He's in, bowls, and he goes back and flicks it. Ooh, slightly in the air past the man at short square leg. It'll bring him a single as on fields.
I'm not sure exactly how seriously either side are taking this series, but in the context, this is actually rather an important session, isn't it? If England could get through it with a loss of 1 or maximum 2 wickets, then it would do them a lot of good.
There's no such thing as a dead test match, is there? There are always players with something to prove.
Yes.
In order to name at least 2.
Yeah, indeed.
Get a second time around whenever that comes.
Santner back over the wicket. Oh, now Burns, the left-hander, just decides to try the sweep from outside off stump, makes no contact at all. And he may have been worried by one that really jumped out of the footmarks yesterday to the left-hander. And so he thinks perhaps the sweep is the way to go, but didn't play that one particularly well.
Clever bit of bowling. I think he just held it back a fraction there, Santner.
Well, he's a crafty bowler. He gives it a little bit of air. This one is a bit flatter, funnily enough, and works to mid-wicket. There is no run. England 177 for 6. They trail now by 201. One more run, or is it two? I'm never quite sure whether it's 200 exactly or 199.
Got to get it to 100.
So it's got to be 279 to actually. 179 to avoid the follow-on. Thrown up. Oh, jumps on Burns, who had gone back, and he got tangled up with his bat and his pads and his gloves, but dropped safely into the offside. End of the over. 177 for 6. Burns 76. Robinson 23.
It's funny what the Twitterati going, isn't it? And chocolate is certainly one of those things. Messi Jez says milk chocolate in the UK and Australia is simply a delivery platform for sugar, fat, and diabetes. Love it. And Eric Willis says something that's incomprehensible to me, but maybe comprehensible to others. American chocolate. This is why we have Ghirardelli. Don't know who Ghirardelli is, I'm afraid. The Light Roller says the worst chocolate of all time is the Hershey bar. The aftertaste of sick is as unpleasing as the setup of Burns. And then he goes on to say, he or she goes on to say, I know too many unrepeatable Tasmanian jokes. That's in response to Mog from earlier on. Oh, Ulysses.
Well, I do have to say, my one visit to a chocolate factory was not. Oh, sorry, I was going to say my one visit to a chocolate factory was in Tasmania. The Cadbury's on a day off in Tasmania. Wagner in. Oh, Robinson reaches for that. Plays it quite nicely though. Tumbling work done at cover by Devon Conway to prevent the run.
Hendo and the Chocolate Factory.
Hendo and the Chocolate Factory, yes. We had a nice tour of the Tasmania Cadbury's, and I think we got a few little gifts at the end. So I'm not going to knock it. It was quite good fun. I mean, you have to put everything on your head You have to put,
Yeah.
All the chocolate.
and you have to put covers on your head and your feet and all that sort of stuff. But kind of quite recommend it, actually. Wagner full. Robinson goes down on his knees, tries to drive, and then finds that he can't time the ball from that position. Latham runs from extra cover to field. There is no run.
There's no mug with the bat, is he, Ollie Robinson?
Not at all.
I think he got a ton on first class debut, actually.
He did. Batting at 9, in fact.
Well, there you go. It's pretty impressive. And actually, he looks like he's got a fair bit of time out there to me.
Yep. He's quite solid, isn't he? The value of a good number 8. Hopefully, that's what's going to show. He's pulled this one a little aerially. If there had been an orthodox square leg, he might have got into trouble there, but there isn't. There's a man back, so it's just a single. He goes to 24, and this partnership now worth 32, something like that. Let me have a look.
I'll tell you in a moment.
Been important because England lost 3 wickets at 140, didn't they?
37.
And when Robinson came in, so 37. So that's it's been needed. It's been much needed. 38, 178 for 6. So they have either saved the follow-on, or they will do with the next run. 2 slips for Wagner as he bowls to the left-hander. He tries to bowl a slower swinging one, just to fool the England batsman, but he spots it and just watches it harmlessly dribble past.
That's the least Wagner bowl the ball that I've seen bowled.
Yes. Shades of Courtney Walsh against Chris Reed.
Oh God, that was brilliant. Oh no, hang on, was that the one where he ducked the Yorker?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I think both Chris Reed and maybe even Graham Thorpe as well, both ducks.
Yeah, Graham Thorpe.
What they thought was
by one like that.
Yes.
Yeah, foolish ball. This is defended, a straight one from Wagner up to mid-on, and there is no run. We'll have a change at the end of this over. I can't remember who's due in next. It's going to be Al, Tony, and the Bear to take over, and then Grubby will be doing his first ball-by-ball stint of the summer at 20-3. Don't miss it, Grubby, for the first time on ball-by-ball since who knows when.
It's Alan Hotchkiss corrects us. Alan, you've corrected us correctly. Walsh to Thorpe and Kens to Reed.
Outside your stump, a little bit of movement. Wagner can't believe it didn't find the edge, but it didn't. Burns smiles and acknowledges the fact that it was a decent delivery. And that is the end of the over. 178 for 6. Burns 76. Robinson 24. And I will leave you in the hands of Al, Tony, and the Bear.
Thanks, guys.
Ulysses Wilberforce for the next tweet, chaps.
There you go.
Thank you very much indeed.
Slightly behind.
Afternoon, Pete.
All that talk of chocolates made me hungry.
Yeah,
Slightly behind.
I was just thinking of cracking a beer, actually.
Well, go and crack a beer
Okay.
while we're waiting for the next over to bowl.
All right.
All right, go on. You go and sort yourself out with the beer. It's Mitchell Sapner who's going to continue as the Bear raids the fridge. How are you, Tony? You okay?
I'm very well. I'm trying to go back as far. I'm wondering how far back Grubby was talking.
It's going to be Santner who comes in. Robinson comes down the ground and in a slightly agricultural fashion takes that over the top of mid-on. Jameson, who is a formidable person to hit the ball over the top of, will do the fielding. Robinson will move to 26 and England will move to 180, and follow on definitely avoided at this stage. But Robinson prepared to use his feet coming down the track. A welcome sight given what we saw in India. Santner in again, and that is hit Robinson in line with where maybe sliding down the legs. Santner looks at the team and goes, "Nah, I don't think it was," but a semi-decent LBW shot.
Nah, I think it probably hit him outside the line of leg stump, and it was sliding down. Terrible shot.
There'll be a leg bye taken anyway, and the total moves to 181.
Yeah, that's hit him outside the line and it's sliding down.
Sliding down, it's probably not hit him outside the line.
Ooh, well, maybe.
It's definitely missing leg stump anyway.
Yeah.
Of that we can be agreed. Santner will come over the wicket to Burns, who just pushes that towards point, just slightly backward of point, and we'll take a single. He's on 76, Robinson 26. As I can hear birds
That'll be Luigi.
Chirping and tweeting. Am I having a
Luigi
stroke,
Magpie.
or is Tony got agriculture and wildlife outside his front door?
No, I'm afraid that is that's my garden.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I was I smell toast away from collapsing there, I think.
No, they're real.
Santner to Robinson, and that's beating the outside edge. What a great delivery that is. Robinson played for the straight line, and the turn just took it past the outside edge. That's a cracking delivery from Santner.
That is a good delivery. Took a little piece out the top. Can't imagine that'll happen too often with a bit of luck, but definitely a decent delivery.
Jack Leach's eyes would be widened if they weren't into his county game rather than Robinson comes down to the next ball and again comes down the track, pushes it to mid-on, and they take a scampering single, and Robinson moves to 27, and the total's 183 for 6, and a slight becalming of the pitch, maybe.
Well, I think it's also after lunch. I'm surprised they didn't start off with Jameson and Southey after lunch. Maybe they're too battered from bowling so much before lunch, but
yeah,
it does seem a little bit odd.
Santner in. Burns gets well across his stumps, well across outside off stump, and the ball kind of dribbles and just misses, careening back into leg stump, and Burns smiles and Watling throws the ball away, and that's the end of the over. Tony, you need time with tweets, I guess.
Well, I think so, although I can't find the one that Grubby's referring to, so I'm just going to start 11 minutes ago, and apologies if you were later than that. Mog was saying, well, if it isn't Paul Contagious Howarth. Rabbi Nair says, butyric acid, surprise found in butter. I'm sure there was a conversation that's relevant to. Farong says, yes, most American foods are ordinary. As for beer, well, that's another can of worms, so to speak. I thought that was, what is it? There is a drink with worms in, isn't it?
Tequila, isn't it?
Or something like
that.
Tequila, maybe. Harriet Atkinson, the captioning gets more bizarre. American chocolate tastes funny because it's full of butt acid. I really don't know what this is about. Leah says, butyric acid really smells bad. So there's obviously some kind of conversation going on there. Jeff Perkins says, should put him in the test side if he's catching. I think that's referring to Grubby. Let me keep going. Mog says, these classics are all a bit new. They're the new kid on the block for me. Give me a pile of Armana letters or a nice Vulture Staley. Again, no clue.
Wagner in, and it's pushed outside Robinson's off stump. Robinson slashes away but swings and misses, and through to the wicket keeper. That seems to be the area that Robinson might be his downfall, that he'll swing away at a wild one. He was quite a considerable distance away from that one.
Yeah, he was quite lucky before lunch. He kept flinging a bat at shit and just missing it. Doesn't move his feet a lot out there, gets to the ball. But he is a number 8, you know. He's worn his luck. He's got to 27. Jesus. I mean, apart from Root and Burns, no one's got into the 20s, have they? So
he's the third highest scorer. He's overtaken the other Ollie.
Oh, yeah, Pope got to 21, didn't he? That's right, yeah.
Wagner in again pushed wide, but this time Robinson does make contact, and it goes slightly backward of point. And Conway will not be able to chase the ball down, and that's a lovely shot for one of these.
First after lunch. I believe it's the first after lunch.
I think so. Runs have been hard to come by.
Matches always sway this way and that, don't they? I mean, if you can't put your best bowlers on after lunch, then it does give England the opportunity.
How many overs have we had in the innings? Are we about 67, 70?
We're in 78th, I think.
So the new ball is available in a couple of overs?
Yeah, in fact, the new ball should be available at the end of this over.
Wagner in again, and that's the short pitch delivery. Wagner being Wagner.
No, 2
Next
overs
over,
time.
78.2, 78.3 now.
Our scorecard
Ducked underneath by Robinson. Straight through to the keeper. No problem.
Our scorecard is working a little bit, but not fine.
It's working a little bit.
Well, it's very slow and updating.
Yeah. England are 187 for 6, trailing by 191 runs. Neil Wagner in. Again pushed wide of Robinson, and Robinson back on his toes. pushes that one in front of square, and again another fruitless run for Conway, and that's a second boundary of the over.
Nice shot.
The number of the day. Who could ask for more? The number of the day is 4.
And he gets up on his toes. He's got the width to free his arms, and just forces it through the covers. They got the man behind square, but it was very much in front of square out to additional cover, and there's no one there. So,
and this brings up the 50 partnership. Rory Burns' contribution 11, as that's another bouncer, which is easily ducked underneath by Robinson. And there's just one ball left to go of this over. So I think that might be the reason why Southey and Jameson haven't been on.
Well, no, I think Southey bowled 8 overs on the trot and only came off at 11:30. So he bowled pretty much the entirety of the first session, bar about 25 minutes. And maybe he just hasn't recovered. Jameson didn't bowl as much as him. But I think you've got to start the session with your best bowlers, always, just because, if you have time away from the pitch, you might be in the groove when you left the pitch, but it still takes, maybe an over just to get your eye back in and feel comfortable at the crease again after, and often that's the best time, get the wicket early.
Well, we'll see, as that one is a bit more on middle and leg, and Robinson chops down on the ball quite late, goes down to long leg, and there'll be a single. Robinson will keep the strike on 36. Tony?
Yes, I will continue. He's a very interesting character on our Cricket Tracker India. I don't think it's much to do with cricket, but he's put a phone number, and he said, and it says, "Solution to your every problem."
To my every problem.
Every problem.
I can't help thinking that's possibly an overclaim.
Now,
but nonetheless.
Should we go with one problem each?
Can we reply?
I think I'd rather move past it, to be honest. However, there are loads and loads and loads of other people. Yadushi Kumar Pradeep, Manmaharo Ambala, Raman Khan, Taran Sharma, Rajat Bo, Vicky Baweja, MD Maksud and Deepak Chowdhury amongst you. So hello.
Hello. And Santner is in, a big loopy, almost full toss, and Robinson just takes a big stride forward, pushes the ball back to Santner, and there'll be no run. Robinson is 36 and seems to be looking more and more comfortable with every passing over. Burns on 77 as that ball just leaves Robinson ever so slightly, but he again good stride forward, just big arms out and just able to dab that into the covers, and there'll be no run. Southey starts to swing his arms as a sort of a eventual warm-up, as that's more on leg stump from Santner this time, and pushed down towards a deep backward square by Robinson, and he'll trot through to 37.
Of course, I've just answered my own question, isn't it? The new ball is due. That's why.
Yes.
Yeah, that was what we were kind of working our way towards.
Yes.
79.2 balls, what is it, 3 balls time?
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I'm being so
time.
Stupid. That's why that Southey and Jameson didn't open up after lunch, obviously.
That's quite right. We've worked through it together. That's
That'll
what
be
I
an
feel like
interesting test for Robinson.
Yeah.
Well, and for Burns, of course. But.
Well, true enough. As Santner is in again. And Burns comes down the track and he's been stumped.
No, he hasn't. He missed it.
Watling's dropped the ball, I think.
He didn't grab hold of it in his hands. It hit the bottom of his gloves. I think he got a little bit
He's definitely demolished the stumps.
Yeah, no, the ball went hit his fingertips and went down behind him.
But Watling has maybe seen Burns coming and fired it through. Yeah, Watling's just not gathered the ball.
Can you imagine if that was Butler or Bairstow? We'd be absolutely berating them, wouldn't we?
Well, I think the Kiwis will be berating Watling, even if it is his last test.
Yeah, I'd imagine they would be. As that is back on the crease and nearly hits Burns in front, but he is able to hit the ball backward of square leg, and he'll take a single and will be pretty lucky to be on 78.
And he
would have been out by an absolute mile.
Yeah.
It was well bowled by Santner.
Yeah, Burns left the crease too early. Really, gave up the ghost.
Almost a Yorker with that last ball, but right on middle stump, and Robinson just plays the ball out to mid-wicket. There'll be no run. The second new ball is available, and Watling blames himself.
Well, I think he should do. Got some tweets there, Tone?
I do indeed. I can tell you that there was clearly a discussion, maybe we all missed, but was there a long discussion about chocolate and food?
Oh, yes.
Ness is saying, trust me on this, it's heavenly stuff, but I didn't know what he's referring to. Grand Theft Auto keeps us back on the cricket, saying, afternoon, if New Zealand get a lead of 150 plus, what is the consensus on the Gondon opening or coming in at 3 for New Zealand? So the kind of pinch hitter theory.
Don't think they'll go that way.
Often highly touted, rarely seem to work.
Yeah,
is my honest opinion of pinch hitters. But it would be interesting. It'd be a statement of intent. We shall see. We shall see. Aman seems to like the conversation about milk chocolate in the UK and Australia. So
well, we
a
have
big discussion there.
This
Aha!
In the hands of.
You balls, please.
It's only a whimsical notion to fly with Tim Southey here tonight. I probably won't fly with Tim Southey.
And Southey's first ball moves off the pitch, nearly chops Burns in half. A good pitch, a good take by Watling. Already it's gone not far over the top of off stump there.
It's a good lead by Burns.
And with the unpredictable bounce, I always find it more and more brave that batsmen decide to leave balls like that.
Well, I think the bounce will be more predictable with a brand new ball than it will be with a slightly softer, older ball.
Southey in around the wicket, angling the ball into Burns, and Burns will just dab that ball to square leg and take a single. He'll move to 78, or 79, sorry, as we see some replays of Southey's wickets in this first innings. He has 4 of them for a miserly 35 runs.
The question is, if we go the entire day, will Burns get to his 100? Because
what
he scored 13 runs.
The day on?
Well, he started on 60 something.
Yeah, because he's not reached 80 yet.
He scored 15 runs in the first session. If he scores 15 runs in a session, he'd probably
pretty
just about get there.
attritional stuff.
Yeah, very much so. 236 balls.
Maybe he's open too much with Sibley. As he's come over the wicket to Robinson. Good shape straight from the hand. But Robinson is able to just play the ball defensively back to Southey, and there'll be no run, as we see that Darryl Mitchell is on the field, a substitute fielder, but we're not quite sure whom he is replacing.
I wish they'd just put up who he's replaced on the bloody pitch.
It would be nice.
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
Would be nice. Robinson 37, Burns 79, England 195 for 6 as Southey comes in for this 4th ball of this first over with the new ball. And it's again good length ball just on an outside off stump, and Robinson blocks the ball to mid wicket, and there'll be no run.
Now here's a question. So Robinson gets dropped for the next test, right? Just because,
so we think. Yeah.
So we think. I mean, that seems to be the thinking.
Yeah.
Presumably it's only a one test ban, just for being a stupid twat when he was a kid. He's clearly done enough, hasn't he, to get himself straight back in if a spot opens up.
Southey in, and the short pitch to delivery, which Robinson sees late and just evades. And through to the keeper.
50 and a few more wickets, certainly.
Does he become the next choice after Wokes? Because you would put Wokes in ahead of him, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know if he takes Wokes' spot suddenly. I don't know. You've got to give him a little run, I think, in the side. I mean, he certainly looks the real deal with a ball. He's got that height, the Carl Jameson type height. I mean, the Archer type thing too, but he's a bit slightly different. Nibbles it away. He's quite metronomic with his lines and lengths. Seems to be able to quite an easy action, can bowl reasonably long spells.
Southey wide of the crease, trying to shape the ball away from Robinson. But he pushes the ball, and Williamson does the fielding at mid-off, and there's no run.
So it's Glenn McGrath as his bowling inspiration, doesn't he?
That's not a bad one to have.
Well, no, also the stepson of Paul Farbrace. So he's got. I mean, not that I'm saying that's a reason to pick him or drop him or anything.
No, but
he's got a sort of a connectivity to the international setup, kind of already in a way, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, he just looks, seems to have the right attitude. I don't know. It just seems to fit. Didn't seem phased by the fact he was playing for England. He got 4 wickets. So 4 for 75 is not a bad return on your first game, in the first day, especially with all the shit that was flying around as well. To concentrate on the game like that, and then to come out after that, having had a day off with rain, been a bit lucky maybe, but he's got to 37, and it was looking, well, rosy on one side, shit on the other. This man is going to come into bowl.
And that's the story of how Kyle Jameson became a man.
Jameson in and on Burns' leg stump, and he will jab the ball away down to deep square leg and take a single. Or or maybe that was a leg. Oh, it is a single. I was waiting for whether it's to tick over to 80 or whether he's going to stay on 79, but Burns reaches 80.
I'd like to see him get his ton. It's a bit early to talk about that, but
lunchtime tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, quite possibly.
He's not in a hurry, is he? The way he's been batting, but as he's watched what's gone on around him, that's probably a good thing, to be honest.
I think to a certain degree that's shaped his innings as well, hasn't it? I mean, he's got to be a little bit circumspect.
Absolutely, can't blame him. Jameson into Robinson, and that is angling in towards Robinson, and Robinson hits the ball defensively just outside off stump, and it goes back to the bowler, and there'll be no run. 196 for 6.
It's quite mad to think that he got his first county contract or whatever it was as a spinner.
Robinson. Who was this?
Robinson, yeah, he was a right arm off spinner, wasn't he, when he started his career?
Was he?
I think so, yeah.
Jameson in again, trying to shape the ball away from Robinson. He just semi-decent stride forward and just defensively plays that ball out towards mid-wicket, and there'll be no run.
I know he got that 9 for this year at Glamorgan. It was something like nearly 280 first-class wickets at just a touch over 21. I mean, that's pretty
good,
pretty decent figures, even if you make that allowance for the gap there between county cricket, even at the highest level, and Test cricket. That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive. Yeah. Well, you can only do what's in front of you, can't you? So.
Absolutely. That ball is a decent length ball, just outside off stump, but too wide, and Robinson can let that ball go through to the keeper.
I guess all the time spent out there, though, is all good for England.
Average is over 22 average in first class cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned that earlier. I thought it was 32, but I got it wrong. It's 22. But still.
22.
The more time out there, the more comfortable it seems.
32, he'd be practically opening there, given this team.
Yeah. Given
decent. I mean, he's classed as a decent all-rounder, isn't he, for Sussex?
Sure enough. Oh, and that's he's drawn forward by Jameson. Attempts to drive the ball. Bounces about 3/4 of the way towards Jameson, who's coming rumbling forward after his delivery stride. But Jameson does the fielding, and there'll be no run as we see more of those nautical hats.
Well, we now know why.
Yes.
We've had that one explained at length. It's all down to Kane Williamson and his ship steadying, thanks to the Alternative Commentary Collective.
It's a good way to describe us all, a collective, as Jameson goes slightly wider of the crease and bowls wider and gives Robinson a chance to swing his arms, which he does brilliantly just between cover and extra cover, and that will beat the fielders, and that will go for 4, and it's 200 up for England. From 140 for 3 to 140 for 6 to 200 for 6.
Yeah, you often get little passages of pay, don't you? I mean, they've got over the important hump of the follow-on. I mean, it means that New Zealand have got to bat again, and if they've got to bat again, they've got to set a target that they don't want to lose. I mean, they might set something competitive, But surely, I suppose if they got us out now, actually, they need about, if they set England 320 to win on the final day, you wouldn't expect England to get it. They'd have 98 overs, which is only been marginally over 3 and over to get there, I suppose. But
Southey in for the first ball of his 22nd over, and outside off stump, and Burns just lets the ball hit the bat and it dribbles down to gully, and there'll be no run.
But you back your bowlers to get the wickets, I think, in the second innings before England got to 320. I mean, barely if they got exactly that. I mean, if they got out for 250 in the first innings, there's no reason to suggest that they would get 320 in their second, with the pitch deteriorating even more. And that would mean what? England get another 50 runs.
Southey is in again, and that is hit high by Burns, and it just drops. His pull shot mistimed, and it drops just short of Conway, who was running in from the deep square leg boundary. But definitely a foul shot by Burns. He didn't look in control of that at all. Seemed surprised by the bouncer. He seemed to be moving forward, and he's just not even hit that hard enough for it to be even close.
He didn't get on top of it at all, did he? It was a bit top edgy. And toey as well.
Toe end of the bat, top edge of the bat.
And but so if England get another 50 runs, it's going to take them another hour or so, maybe an hour and a half. It takes it nearly to tea. I suppose there's going to be a long session tonight, isn't there, after tea?
Well, there's 2 extended sessions, isn't there?
This one goes till 4
session will be slightly longer. Southey in, get right on Robinson's off stump, and a good stride forward and a good solid defensive shot, and that's no run.
So does this session go till 4:10, do we think, and then the last session through till?
This one goes to 3:55, I think, if I understand it right. Yeah.
Okay, so 15 minutes to each of the sessions.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Plus the extra half hour at the end. I'm assuming that the last ball can be bowled at 7 if the overs haven't been bowled anyway.
Which they probably won't be.
No.
As Southey is in, and that's another attempted bouncer. Goes down the leg side, and an appeal by Watling and Southey for maybe a glove, but everybody remains unmoved, including Kane Williamson.
I don't think Watling really appealed it. He started to and then didn't, which kind of gives the game away. Although Southey was vociferously appealing.
I want a fiver at Lords.
Yeah, well, he's still got a good chance of getting it. No, he's
he's underneath that. The ball's bounced too high for it to be catching either bat or glove.
Well, Robinson needs 2 more runs to overtake Root as the second highest scorer in the innings.
That is true. Did you go under for the fall of the next? The 7th wicket?
I only bet under the fall of the first wicket in the match. I haven't done any other betting on this.
Wide outside the off stump, tempting Robinson to drive, but all he can do is hit extra cover. Williamson is there, and it does a bit of light shining on the ball, and there is no run. Yeah, it's bounced over his hands and bat.
Certainly not afraid to take it on, though, is he?
No.
Gotta like that.
Well, at 41, you kind of go. You would hope that there was confidence there, although that confidence apparently evaporates by the time you get to 81.
Yeah.
But it does seem remarkable that they're batting almost on 2 different wickets. Southey wide of the crease again, and that is tucking Robinson up on the leg stump, but he can't play the ball behind square leg, so there'll be no run to end the over. 201 for 6. Tony.
Yes, indeed. Toby Miller says, will Robinson get to his 100 before Burns does and then be dropped? Peter Smith says Santner would be the obvious one for Bolt to replace in the next game. Well, we'll see how he goes in the second innings and whether they feel they need a spinner, I guess. Santner is not a big spinner of the ball, says Peter, and his test average is in the 40s. Yeah, fair enough. We were saying he hasn't got a 5, he's got a best of a 3 for so far. Ulysses Wilberforce says, this is all on YouTube. I'd like to see this tail cleaned up now. I'm a bit frustrated by Robinson. And Ahmed says, should Hasib Hamid start the next match? Yeah.
I think you've got it. What has Sibley got, like 13 runs in 6 innings? As Jameson is in, and that is 2 wide. and Burns will Burns has got no choice but to let that go through.
The thing about Sibley is when he looks settled, he looks good, but when he gets out cheaply, he looks ugly doing it, doesn't he?
When was the last time he was settled, Tony?
But
that's the problem. Too long ago, I think.
Well, the thing is, you know, if you're going to say that, then you pretty much discard virtually the entire bloody team apart from Root and probably Stokes. I mean, no one did fuck all in India of any note, apart from Root and one innings from Stokes. And Sibley got some runs, didn't he, in the first innings in India? No one else got any runs for the entire series. Burns was dropped.
Jameson in, but again too wide outside. Burns is off stump and through to the keeper. The radar definitely off from Jameson.
I mean,
Sibley got he got 87 in one India innings, didn't he?
Yeah, in the first.
But this season, 43 versus Essex, 29 versus Derbyshire. Not a lot else. So he's not exactly been racking up the championship runs.
I mean, I haven't seen Hasib Hamid since he broke his finger in India. So I mean, I know he's had his ups and downs, but he scored a ton this. He scored some runs this.
Scored a couple, didn't he?
Yeah.
Scored a couple of century.
So maybe it's time to give him a little shout. And, I don't know what his technique's like these days. Apparently he's gone back to the drawing board and etc. etc. But he was extraordinarily young when he got picked. When he got picked in that test in India, wasn't he only 19 or something?
He was relatively young, wasn't he?
He's about 24 now, isn't he?
Slightly closer to Burns, which allows him to drive stylishly, but only to a deep cover fielder. And so Burns will move to 82. The gap 176 between the innings totals.
Let's have a look. Hasib.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting about whether you just let the two tests take care of themselves and then. Well, he can go, Sibley isn't part of the either ODI or T20 setup, so he can go and have a thrash in the 100 if he's part of that. And that is a ball which slightly leaves Robinson off the pitch, and a good delivery that's too good, and it goes through to the keeper.
Yeah, I mean, Hasib Hamad is only 24 years old.
It is really weird. I mean, it's part of being picked so young, is that he seems to have been in the consciousness for a while, and to hear he's 24 just doesn't seem quite right.
Where would you bat him at 3 if you kept Sibley and keep him at 3?
What, and then drop Crawley?
Well, Crawley's got to make a case for himself.
Sure enough.
Well, in the second innings.
That ball outside off stump, left alone by Robinson, and it I think maybe goes and is taken by Santner on the second bounce or very close to it.
But if you take India and Sri Lanka to a lesser degree out of the picture, Sibley was doing all right before that. You know, last summer in England he did pretty well, got himself some big runs playing for England. He is the man in possession. I think it's hard. I mean, I'm just looking at Hasib's stats. He started off the season well, but he's tailed off a little bit. 49, 24, 39 and 2 in his last 4 innings.
Last ball of this over slightly squares Robinson up, takes the outside half of the bat into the covers. Latham can't stop the ball and can't prevent Robinson reaching 42. He'll have the strike. England are 203 for 6, and I think we're having a change.
Yeah, we are due a change. It's a 3-man change.
The often replicated, never duplicated Grubby will take you through the next session.
Grand Theft Auto 9 minutes ago, Grubs, whoever is on that duty.
That's me. That's me, Bish. Sorry, who is it 9 minutes ago?
Yeah, 9 minutes ago, apparently. Hello, Messers. What a joy to see you, sir.
And you, young Grubby. It's good to have Grubby and Messi all on at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah, the only tidy one is me.
Well,
which is hard to believe, as anyone who's ever had to live with me will probably attest.
A decent fight back here from these two. Robinson looks, I said it before, he looks to have plenty of time at the crease. We know he can bat. He got that ton on first class debut. He's got 42. The lion's share of the runs in this partnership, which I think stands at 63 at the moment. Couple of slips in place. Top edge on this one though from Southey, and it's being caught at long leg just as I'm bigging Robinson up. Southey does have his name on the board at Lord's, taking his 5th wicket there. Robinson was looking to swivel pull that one only succeeded in getting a top edge, and it's been caught down there by the giant Jameson, and England are now 203 for 7.
All of the dreams that I dreamed were mine are going, gone.
Yeah, safely pouched by the tumbling giant Jameson down there at long leg. But an excellent knock there from Ollie Robinson on debut for England. 42 runs he got, partially helped to dig England out of a bit of a hole, got them past the follow-on target as well. But still, England a long way behind in this game with just over a day and a half left of it. Hendo.
Do you think he actually managed to get him out of the hole, or he's just climbed up the side of it and we still actually got to find our way through it with the last 3 batsmen?
Partially out of the hole, aren't we?
Partially out of the hole? Has he been given some rope, perhaps?
Yeah, well, at least you're not following on now.
Well, that's true. That's true. Although I suspect that New Zealand would not have enforced it. I'm sure they just they would have wanted to get their batsmen a little bit more practice in before the World Test Championship. I don't think they would have enforced.
I think if they knocked us over quickly this morning, when we were 5 down and still needed 30 or 40 runs to avoid the follow-on. I think if they'd knocked us over quickly, then they definitely would have enforced the follow-on, because I mean it's not right at the last knockings, but there's limited time left in the game. Bowlers would have been relatively fresh. If it had taken a while to do that, then and it's a hot day, maybe they'd have thought differently. But anyway, it's academic because England did pass that total. The new man is this horse.
Or not.
Sometimes we can not hear.
There it is.
He is an England bowler, quite good and pretty quick. So just a normal guy. Of course. Except for just one thing. What? He thinks that he's a horse. Right. What?
Southey, fuelled by his 5-wicket haul, is coming round the wicket to Burns. The batsman crossed as Robinson was being caught. This one takes him on the back of the helmet, I think. He was almost a bit early on that. Again, looking to aim a swivel pull into the leg side. I think he's copped a rather unfortunate one there, though. Trying not to show any pain, but I'm pretty sure I detected a grimace. And it has hit him just above the left ear as he's looking to turn that into the leg side. So presumably someone's going to have to come on the field now and they'll have to do an equipment check and a batsman check as well. The protocols, rightly so I suppose, but annoying as a fan. We just want to see as much cricket as possible, and we're now going to have another little gap.
Well, I've got to say, yes. So Grand Theft Auto says Burns gets out of the slowly 70s and now is into the edgy 80s, sticking his rear into the rear guard. Gross Point Antifa, showing optimism rarely seen in an Englishman, says 150 England lead by lunch tomorrow. Yeah, I don't think so. Leah says, I'm not a fan of dropping Robinson as punishment. They should make him have a conversation about what he did and why it was wrong with Michael Holden and Ebony Rainford Brenda. I think he'd probably rather miss a match, to be honest. I've got to say that I was amazed that Robinson lasted like he did. The first couple of overs, he looked like an under-12 player trying to whack it out of the ground. And it was extraordinary he made as many runs as he did. I've also noticed since the news about his teenage indiscretions dropped, my sense of wanting him to do well has declined significantly. Robinson, I mean, it's just what it is. I'm not passing judgment overtly, it's just happening in my body. Farong says no beer here currently in Bangladesh means my friends need me to buy spirits for them. Last night Glenfiddich 12-year-old malt, damn good, had about half a litre. My God, it would be nice if my ex-employer pays me $10,000 they owe me from over 12 months ago. Cheers. Well, I don't know if you're still drinking it, Farong, but it's obviously doing you some good.
I think you're mistaking us for Joe Lycett. We don't really take on cases like that.
Taipang Shan says Hong Kong present and incorrect. Bring back Hamid, the future.
It's funny about him, isn't it, Messers? I don't know what you think about this, but I mean, we covered that series where he made his debut as a 19-year-old in India, and he looked to the manner born in that. I think it was his first innings where he opened with Cook and he scored a 50, and he was christened the baby boycott and all that. And I think that sense of what we saw or what we think we saw has stayed with the England management ever since, and they've been desperate for him to do well enough to get him back into the fold. Is my reading of it. So, good luck to him. He did look like he had really something about him and that real stickability we were looking for as an opener. And hopefully he's young enough to make a successful career. We'll see.
The thing about that, though, is Grubby. I mean, yes, I was really pleased to see that he'd been picked in one sense, or he'd been brought in as a sort of backup. And obviously he's been in the nets. We've seen him walking around the ground with coaches and whatever, obviously going down to get a net. I'm just wondering whether they could have done it better. Was this just more of a focal point to say to people, look, we're still looking at him? Because wouldn't he have been better playing for Nottinghamshire at Essex this week? Actually playing more matches, getting that under his belt, facing more bowling in a match situation than actually coming up and being kind of surplus to requirements at Lord's. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, well, talking to a Somerset fan, been shorn of Overton and Leach for similar reasons. Yeah, I suppose when you're in that squad and you're in it specifically as cover, then you understand that that's the case. And at the moment, with the way the world is, it doesn't allow you to go back to your county as you would have been able to do in previous years. Yeah. So I'm afraid that's just the way. It's unfortunate. I'm sure he would have preferred to have been playing in one of the one game or the other this week, but it's just. Would it not
have been sufficient for them to have a word with him and say, look, we're really close, having a close watch at you. We, keep doing what you're doing. Go to Essex and play, get more runs under your belt. But you were very much in our plans. I just feel as if maybe it was a selection made for the media and the fans in a sense.
Well, my reading.
I don't know. I think there's something in it for him too, to know that they have that much faith in him is also a really useful thing, and just to be hanging around the team is a big deal. To be part of that process and to know that there's a good chance that's going to continue on into the summer. Because after all, this is the last round of county games for a long time this week. So if he stays within the England bubble, he's going to be part of that setup for a little while now, I'd imagine.
Okay, no, I think it's a fair point. I think there's two ways of looking at it.
As Southey resumes round the wicket to Burns, who's forward in defence, none the worse for that blow, it seems. And playing it up towards mid-off, and there is no run, 203 for 7.
Is it just me, Messi, or does everyone think that Messi is in a water tank? Coming up for air every now and again. It sounds very, very, very deep and echoey where you are.
So, is that better? I've got the microphone closer to my mouth now.
That's a bit better, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I blame the bourbon. He's probably on the bourbon.
No, actually, I've still got some wine here from last night, which I haven't started yet because I discovered it makes for a very, very long day for me.
Good length ball from Southey, just played from the crease by Burns, nabbing it down towards gully, and there's no run once more. And Burns, I know you can crab him a little bit for his slow scoring pace, 82 from 245 deliveries. But thank God, from England's point of view, that he's done that job. And I suppose once you get into that mode as well, where you've cast yourself as the anchor, it's quite difficult to kind of cut free. So it's probably quite good that he had that partnership with Robinson, who was able to play more freely in that role. But I'm not going to throw rocks at Burns, other than for his haircut possibly, but there we are. Outside of the off stump, this one from Southey, a full length and a bit unthreatening. It's through to the keeper. That is the end of the over. It remains 203 for 7. And what have we got on socials?
So can you give me a couple of seconds? My microphone's not connecting, which is what the problem is.
That's what it is. So we're getting Messi's computer microphone. Oh, we'll just wang on about stuff then. It's a gorgeous day there at Lord's, by the way. I've got a couple of mates who are there, lucky things, and we saw a close-up of a family there. The dad had thought to bring an umbrella with him, which is being deployed as a parasol rather than a parapluie at the moment. Southey with figures of 5 for 37, really excellent he's been for New Zealand. He bowls a full floaty one though, which Burns is able to steer with good timing through the covers, and it's going to reach the boundary sponge now for one of these.
And if you kids can't listen, then you bound to see the way you get shot for crossing a boundary, crossing a boundary.
I can remember for a little while that he has timed quite so well, Hendo.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been quite. He hasn't been given many opportunities through the offside. I mean, they've been quite tight in terms of having 3 on the offside for him. So it's almost like they haven't allowed him to break out of that kind of slightly negative mindset. I don't think it's a negative mindset. I think it's a solid mindset. He's not doing anything stupid, and well, he nearly did, didn't he? He played that pull shot that dropped between mid wicket and deep. But generally speaks, and certainly in the first session, he was very, very watchful.
Jameson bowling to Mark Wood, a wasted delivery, short and outside the off stump, and Wood has nothing to do with it. There are, I think, 3 slips in place for England's quickest quick bowler, and a gully. Let's have a look. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 3 slips and a gully, a backward point among that ring there. England on 207 for 7, and yeah, beautiful day. A few high fluffy white clouds above Lords, champagne corks in the turf. You get the idea. This is defended by Wood from the crease, played up to short mid wicket, and there is no run.
And Wood can bat. I mean, I think it's quite good to see him at number 9. I think that's a reasonable position for him. He has got a Test 50, and he's got some shots, and he's a sensible player. I think he's an intelligent cricketer. He hopefully won't just give it away like some. I was going to say, when I came on for my first session after lunch, I was still in shock from Dan Lawrence's shot this morning. Absolute shocker.
The giant Jameson into the crease now, and he beats Wood on the inside edge as Wood looks to drive him. Has he got him out, caught behind?
Yes.
Might have done, a little scratch through. Yeah, that must have taken the inside edge. Pretty loose drive that from Wood. He should have been having nothing to do with that.
As I said, he never gives it away.
He never gives it away, and he's given it away. Bye-bye, Woody. 207 for 8. Oh, the jinglers on strike.
Well, he's played for a little bit more swing than there was, I think, and he's got an inside edge. It's a
4th
highly unfortunate dismissal. Yeah.
Yeah, so back to Dan Lawrence, he will be absolutely furious with himself. When commentators sometimes say that, he'll be thinking this, I can safely say he'll be absolutely furious with himself for playing the shot that he played. I mean, the ball arguably was there for driving, but he did that. I mean, he does play quite wristily, quite bottom-handedly, doesn't he? Even through the offside on occasion.
Well, when the ball's swinging like that, you've got to be opening the face more. I mean, he literally, in the end, came across it because of the bottom hand. I mean, we've seen Virat Kohli plays that drive, and one or two others, Jason Roy, especially in the one-day game where they really give it a bit of extra impetus from the bottom hand. But you've got to be careful where you bring that bottom hand in.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're coming across the ball, aren't you?
That's right, and that's his natural way of playing. It's just that if you do that and you get out to it, as he did earlier on, you're going to get far more criticism than if you get out in a more conventional manner. One thinks back to Gary Ballance, whose technique was constantly under scrutiny for England, and when it goes wrong with a technique like that, I think you're more liable to be dropped, rightly or wrongly. That's just the way it is. Now, get ready, the Twitter person who is Stuart Broad batting, because Stuart Broad is batting.
Hey!
What would make Broad walk?
If his stumps were knocked down,
What would make Broad walk?
caught 5 feet off the ground.
What would make Broad walk?
If he trod on his
What
stumps,
would make Broad walk?
if God was one of the
What
arms,
would make Broad walk?
Broad walk.
What Broad?
So we've had an opening batsman on either side who has almost carried his bat now. Obviously Devon Conway in that first innings for New Zealand, and Rory Burns for England on the brink of doing so now with England 8 down.
I just want to say, I mean, I know I'm not on Twitter, but I do have to say that is Stuart Broad batting? Tweeted 41 seconds ago, Stuart Broad is batting.
Wow. That
Good,
is
isn't it? It's good. It's good.
prescient stuff. A decent in-swing. I think that pitched outside the outside leg stump as Jameson makes the appeal for LBW, but it's run away into the leg side for a leg bye.
Do you think he's got a direct line to Stuart Broad, so that Stuart Broad sort of alerts him when he's about to go out to bat? Otherwise, it's incredibly watchful of the Twitter handle, the Stuart Broad batting, isn't it?
Vigilant.
Has to be concentrating the whole time, doesn't he?
Maybe he has notifications set on his phone. Sorry, I'm jumping in because Messenger seems to be having problems and he's disappeared again.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do the tweets for the time being if you want.
Well, you seem to be keeping an eye on them anyway, don't you, Henry?
Well, yes.
86, and he's on strike to Jameson, who's into the crease now, over the wicket to the left-hander, who defends it into the offside. There is no run. 208 for 8 remains the score. He really is an absolute beast of a man, isn't he, Jameson?
He really is. He really is. I can see that a lot of enjoyment is being had from my commentary faux pas, on the basis that I bigged up Mark Wood as a batsman. Warren says some class commentary cursing going. Not easy to say that, actually. And what are you doing, Zip? He's a sensible cricketer, quote.
Jameson bowls a ball with some decent bounce, but across Rory Burns, doesn't have to play at that one. And that completes the over. 208 for 8 remains the score. Yeah, no, I knew that would happen because I was bigging up Robinson as a batsman.
Yes.
He top edged one to long leg and got caught. But we all know, don't we, that there is no such thing as the commentator's curse. It's utter bullshit. You may as well believe in fairies or Mitchell Santner.
Tai Pang Shan, or is it Tai Ping Shan, isn't it? Says Hong Kong present and incorrect. Bring back Hamid, the future. Derek Willis says bringing in Hamid for the next test seems like a bit of a desperation move, to be honest. Well, I don't think they will. I mean, Sibley's barely played any cricket this year, has he? Or certainly since the county season got underway because of finger problems. He's got to do something in the second innings. They're going to give him 2 tests, aren't they? Trouble is, if he fails again, he's got no county cricket really, or not much county cricket in between. He's not going to be playing the one days, is he, before India get here again?
There's a fair degree of scrutiny on all of England's top 3. I mean, Burns has got this score, but prior to that, he was in a pretty desperate run of form. This is defended by Broad up to mid-on. There's no run. Zach Crawley, since that monster 200 last summer, has... I don't know what his stats are since then, but I'd be surprised if he's averaging over 30.
No, he's not. They're not good. I mean, he's looked good at times. He's got a good 50 in India, one good 50 in India. And he always looks good and then gets out. I say always looks good. He didn't look particularly good yesterday because he wasn't there long enough. I mean, he's the kind of player that has to stay out there to make hay, because he is such an attractive batsman to watch when he gets going. But he's got to actually make sure that he gets going.
Southey in around the wicket to Stuart Broad. Another full delivery, full face to the bat from Broad, and it speeds back to the bowler, who fields it. And Broad, mindful of a run-out possibility, regains the crease.
Spangley Stiles. Oh, you're back, are you? Are you back, Messi?
Testing. Can you hear me properly?
Well, we can hear you. The Norwegian jury is here.
Oh, fantastic. I use the time of it on a tradition of turning it off and turning it on again. It seems to have done the trick.
That's the way to go.
Welcome back, messages. Welcome back.
Thank you. And Spangley Size next, I take it.
I've been jumping about, to be honest.
With his wide stance, and he's back in his crease to a short ball from Southey, and playing it defensively to backward point. And there's no run.
What?
70 behind England.
I think I think you should do the Leah one next, actually, about Stuart Broad.
Being blocked.
This can't be true.
Saying, is Stuart Broad batting, which is a Twitter account, is blocked by Stuart Broad?
Why on earth would Stuart Broad block that? Where's the man's sense of humour?
Well, obviously he has very little. I was giving him a bit of a shit at one stage, but
KP Genius, anyone, Broady? This is allowed to pass through by Broad, a ball that goes across him. Southey's coming back over the wicket to him now.
The only reason I can think for Stuart Broad actually blocking is Stuart Broad batting, is that it might upset his concentration every time he goes out to bat when he knows that his Stuart Broad batting is going to be saying Stuart Broad is batting. That's the only reason I can think, unless he normally takes Twitter out there with him and he doesn't want to be put off.
Oh dear. He's got a very low threshold of tolerance, hasn't he?
Seems to.
Glorious side-on shot was seeing on the TV screen at the moment, and Lords, it's an absolute picture. If only it were chock-a-block full, that would just complete the scene. But it's good enough for now. This was across Broad and just shaping into him such that he had to play, but held its line so that it beat him on the outside edge, and he remains on 0. And Burns at the other end is 86. And England remains on 208 for 8.
Taipang Xing has retweeted a tweet from Is Stuart Broad batting, which simply shows Basil Fawlty whipping the Morris 1100 with that branch outside Fawlty Towers. Which is very apt, I think.
Yeah. Well, Broady, he's more the man for the little cameo, isn't he, these days? If he doesn't get out in his first 3 or 4 balls, he sometimes gets a very useful 33, most of which is smacked over cover, really.
Yeah, he's got a very good eye, good hand-eye coordination for a bowler. Obviously, his dad was a batsman of note. Some highlights in the Ashes in years gone by. This is tucked into leg side by Broad Jr., and he comes through for something of a Red Bull KP type single. Talking of the KP Genius Twitter account, which allegedly Stuart Broad was involved in setting up, but always denied doing so. So quite strange that he should take offence to jokey Twitter accounts.
Yes, it is weird, isn't it? That's very odd.
Not offensive, is it? I mean, if it said, "Is Stuart Broad a wanker?" then bad.
Yeah.
Is Stuart Broad, I think it's a perfectly innocuous question.
But also, I mean, I love it because it kind of acknowledges that there is entertainment value to be had from Stuart Broad batting. He's not just a tail ender. There's something, he always, when he comes out, you're not quite sure what you're going to see, whether he's going to be out to a sort of Yorker first ball or whether he's going to slash it around for a few runs. He's box office. That's what he is. He's box office as a batsman.
Now, he's worked his way back up to number 10, hasn't he? Because he was number 11 for quite a while.
I think when Anderson's there, he normally manages to sort of switch in at number 10.
Yes,
but sometimes if Anderson's not playing, he does find himself in that predicament.
He'll be having a word with Woody after today, won't he?
Oh, he will, absolutely. Yeah, Woody he's done himself no good at all.
So can you describe that retrospectively for me, seeing as I was off at the time?
What, the wicket?
Oh, yes.
Oh, we're back live.
Back live.
Jameson starts a new over and bowls a relatively innocuous-looking delivery, but Broad manages to miss it, and it's through to the keeper. So we're still on 209 for 8. I was enjoying the use of I don't know what the name of the implement is. It's the long stick with the kind of plunger type thing on the end to flatten down a piece of turf, a dobber or something. I don't know, what do you call that? Is there a name for that?
It's a plunger, isn't it? It's a plunger of some sort.
It's not used to to unblock a sink or something.
No, it doesn't plunge into the sink or the toilet. That's true.
And that plunger bit at the end is actually solid metal, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Thumper.
Thank you, Alan. And this has been... I thought it had been caught at backward point, but must have just fallen in front of the man there, diving away. It squirted off a thick outside edge from Broad.
Well, to bring Messi up to date, I did say that Wood is not a bad batsman. Just before he then aimed a rather loose drive at a ball that was swinging away, but he was thinking it was going to swing a bit more, and he actually got an inside edge through to the keeper.
Oh dear.
And the man who employed the thumper on the pitch recently, we've just seen a bit of footage of him running off the pitch, hurdling the sponge and then going arse over tit. It was quite amusing. A pull from Broad, one bounce to the man at long leg, and he comes through for another single. Jameson doesn't look particularly impressed by that, thinking that A, how dare you play that shot to me, and B, if you're going to play it, at least have the decency to be caught on the boundary. We're just seeing that again. A little hurdle over the sponge from the thumper user, and then he just trots on a couple of paces, and then almost just loses his footing for no apparent reason, and in the way of a slightly out of shape middle-aged man, goes headlong, rolling towards his colleagues, and has got a big round of applause from everyone at Lord's for that. Well done, sir.
You sound like you relate.
I do. Massively. I had a similar tumble when we were camping last weekend. The wife said it was the funniest thing she's ever seen. Tripped over our own guy rope. This is turned off his hip by Burns and comes through to move on to the Australian devil number of 87.
It's one of those stages of marriage thing, isn't it? If you did it in your first year, she'd be desperately concerned. At this stage, she just thinks it's funny, and 10 years from now, she'll think, "Thank Christ for that."
Yeah, the laughter might be a bit more cruel in 10 years' time. Although it was fairly cruel last weekend, I must say, Messi.
10 years' time, she might be sort of checking the will to make sure see if you've actually finished yourself off.
If we're still I'm not going to answer that question.
Wasn't a question.
Jameson round the wicket and a full delivery. Broad does pretty well to dig that one out. Yorker length it was. And he manages to squirt it back to the broad-shouldered 6'8" Leviathan bowler. Seeing some fairly creative uses of flags and umbrellas in the crowd because the sun's pretty hot there, I should imagine, at Lord's at the moment. Mid-20s, I'd say.
Whoa, yes.
Yeah, I know.
Searing stuff.
You know what it's like.
I do.
You know what it's like.
I do need to know, Grubby. Was it family camping or was it couples camping? There's such a difference.
Family. This is a short ball that Broad plays inside of, and it's through to the keeper. Yes. It was family camping. The two of us are now two lads, aged 11 and 8. And Emma's basically been on a sort of 4 or 5 year campaign to get me to agree at all to go camping. It's not really my thing. Anyway, we went and we'd set the tent up. Night had fallen. We had our little fire pit going. Beers were flowing, all the rest of it. We were constantly chucking wood onto the fire. And it was one of my little excursions into the wood next door, beer can in hand, just to get a few twigs, to keep the old thing going. And I came back, absolutely nailed this guy rope, went arse over tit, did a commando roll, and didn't spill my beer.
Oh well, that's the important thing. I'm impressed.
Here comes Southey round the wicket to Burns. It's a short delivery outside the off stump, but he fetches it and doesn't quite time it, but he's going to get a run to wide mid wicket, exposing Stuart Broad at the other end. 212 for 8 is the score.
Warren says he's pondering changing his name, his Twitter handle to Stuart Broad is tweeting.
Well, that's far more often than batting.
Yeah. I was going to say that Southey's got a chance for getting a career best here. He's got figures of 6 for 50 at Lord's back in 2013. His best in tests is 7 for 64, and he's on 5 for 43 with 2 wickets remaining. So he could be on course for a career best here.
He was tremendously skillful this morning, I thought.
Oh, yeah, tremendous.
I mean, there's some ordinary shots, but he's set some of those batsmen up really, really expertly. This is flung wide and full for Stuart Broad, who might have been expecting a shorter delivery. Indeed, he comes down and pats the pitch where he thinks that one he might have expected it, but in the end he aimed a pretty expansive drive and didn't connect.
It strikes me that Stuart Broad's attitude basically is, I really don't give a fuck. If I do hit it, it'll be nice, but who cares?
Yeah, there's a bit of that, yeah. But he's got a good, as we said, he's got a good eye, and sometimes it comes off quite magnificently.
Yeah, I don't think he bothers too much with defence or defensive technique in this stage of his career. Although he sways quite nicely out of the way of that one, which was a short one. Jerks his head backwards, but he kept his eye on the ball and he played that pretty well, I thought.
Yep, he did. He stayed in line. And, as you say, swayed back at the last moment. Watched it. It's better than sort of ducking. He has been known to just sort of duck into bouncers in recent years, hasn't he? And take his eye off it. So I think on this occasion he was fine.
Or put his eye straight in the case of Barrow. Broad waits. Southey doing a bit of tinkering to something or other. Tossing himself the ball from right to left hand. And he's into his run up now. Southey onto the crease over the wicket. A full delivery, that was right on middle stump, but blocked back towards mid-off by Broad, who goes for a little walk to square leg and contemplates life.
I think you flatter him there. Hombre Nuevo says it's Stuart Broad bingo time. He's going for 18 and caught out with a wild sweep to the deep. That's going to be fairly good, right?
Modal Broad type of innings.
I think he'll. My sweepstake would be Broad on 9 being caught at deep backward point.
Okay. Using the crease very well, but bowling a weird tennis ball bouncy delivery this time, Southey. He jumped wide of the crease, bowling over the wicket to the left-hander, and then seemed to lose his direction a bit. Sort of pitched about halfway down, and really ballooned into the air. So we'll put that one down to experience and move on with our lives, I think. We had a close-up of the redoubtable Neil Wagner there, 35 years old, to bowl the way he bowls, testing out the middle of the pitch. He takes over 50% of his wickets with short deliveries. He's an absolute specimen. Here comes Southey though, over the wicket once more. Full this time to Broad, who is forward in defence and playing it pretty correctly up towards mid-off. He sees out the over. Burns will be on strike at the start of the next one. It's 212 for 8. What we got on messages?
Warren says he's not sure about the handle Stuart Broad is Stuart Broad wanking.
What? No.
I tell you what, he wouldn't want to have one is Stuart Broad walking, because that wouldn't get used very often.
Oh yeah, good point. I mean, we've got a jingle about that, haven't we? Yeah. I'm just wondering what's England's approach at this stage? Just to stay out there as long as they can, get Rory Burns to a third Test 100. Just use up time, I suppose, isn't it? Really?
Don't give it away.
That's what I mean.
Take it as deep as possible. They've got to be thinking. Still think positively. You know.
Can you?
My sense is that. Sorry, Hinder.
Go on.
Well, my sense is that the Broad's not going to last long, and that Burns probably needs to be a little more attacking than he is.
And the redoubtable Wagner is in for a new spell, and his first delivery wraps Burns on both pads. He was only half forward. I thought it was a pretty decent shout. It's not been given, and I don't think they're going to review it as he's walking smartly back to his mark. I would have been tempted to review that, I think.
Yeah, I would have. I think it may be an inside edge. That's the only thing they're thinking about it. Otherwise, I think they have reviewed it, have they? Yes, it looks like they are.
Yeah. Maybe they have. We just
I wondered. My picture wasn't that good, but I wondered if it might be hitting just outside the line.
I thought it was close, but I thought I heard a second noise, so there might have been an inside edge.
Definitely worth a review, I'd say. Good shape to it.
That was out. That was definitely out. Was that definitely out? I don't know.
Bit high, I think.
It's back leg, isn't it? Back leg again, though. Or is it brushed the front pad?
I don't know. It's not touched the front pad at all, despite what I said initially.
Yeah.
It's not hit the bat either. It's taken him sort of high up on the thigh, towards the box.
Yeah, it is too high.
And even though he's squatting down a little bit and he's not very tall, that's going to be going over the top, I would have thought. Yeah, just missing the wicket. It's not by too much, a couple of inches, but yeah, that's it's not out. So good decision by the ump, but well worth a shout, and I think worth a review.
Yeah. Well, they had all three remaining, so it's definitely worth it.
So here comes Wagner once more. 2 slips in place. A terrible, airy shot outside the off stump. No feet, and just thrust his wrists towards it. He won't be proud of that one at all, Rory Burns.
You just think, I mean, although Burns has got 88, he's been out there for a long time, and there was ferocious concentration needed this morning when all those wickets were falling at the other end, and he just feels maybe he's just, I don't know, in the last half an hour or so, he's lost concentration a little bit.
You know, concentration should be his strong suit, though. All those runs scored for Surrey, a lot of time he spent out in the middle, played long innings, done so once or twice for England as well, so I don't think we can expect him to fail on that front. This one is just defended, winds up backward of the stumps. Yes, Hender.
Yeah, I think no, in general terms, you know, he's a man who's, I think, when he's highest scoring county cricket, he batted to something like 10.5 hours or even more than that for a double century. So yes, he is a man who can bat long times. I just wonder whether, you know, the effort of that person and you know, being the sort of man that they're looking to in this innings to get them anywhere close to New Zealand, just went off the boil for a little while.
Oh, brilliantly bowled by Wagner. He should have had his man, but it's been dropped by first, second slip, and then first slip. It was parried. I'm going to see who the protagonist is. It's Southey at second slip, who parried it with his right hand, and then would it be Ross Taylor at second slip, who couldn't quite grab it in his left hand, and the ball wound up just behind the two of them. Brilliantly bowled by Wagner. Again, just that awkward length of his and going across, and I think it seamed a bit as well. Yeah. It was a combination of Southey's two hands diving to his right from second slip, and then Ross Taylor's left hand, it just brushed his hand. A double drop, really deserved the wicket there. Really good bit of bowling from Wagner, and another indifferent shot from Burns that he's got away with.
Yeah, I don't know why he was playing it that really.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it did
think
move
that
away
really
slightly.
Yeah. He was playing a long way away from his body, wasn't he?
Yeah, not
followed
first timing this over. This one is clipped quite pleasantly off his legs by Broad, and they trot through for another single. I think I'd have been tempted not to take the single and protect Burns at this rate. Burns has one delivery though to face from Wagner. He's bowled a pretty decent over coming back into the attack. Really should have had his man.
Yeah, and I mean he's dropped
catchable height.
I mean, you can't really expect that, that Taylor could take the rebound there. I mean, it was just a sort of instinctive stretch out of the left hand after it's fallen out of Southey's hands, and it's gone a little bit behind him. But you know, two opportunities there really. Wagner must be furious.
Yeah, I would be. And he's a man who often looks furious, not least when he's bowling. He's running in now with a face like it would kill small children if you looked at him. It's driven off the inside edge by Burns, fielded at mid-wicket. There's no run. He remains on 89. Broad has 3 and he will be facing at the start of the next over, and the score is 214 for 8. New Zealand very much on top.
And Leah says Broad on 2 and strikers in danger here. Derek Willis says, quote, "My sense is that Broad's not going to last long. Should be a commentary bingo item." And there's a GIF that Taipang Shen has shown of Broad hooking to be caught at deep square leg, which is, he reckons it's coming up any time now.
Anytime now. Anytime. So I think we can have one more over, aren't we, gents, with the 3 of us? And then there'll be a change. Hendo's done wonders on the rotors to accommodate the extended playing times. You'll be pleased to know.
I do have a plea from Ken and Dakari on YouTube. He says it's from India and would love to hear our prediction about the World Test Championship. I'm sorry.
And Jameson is in and bowls a full delivery to Broad, plays it back to the bowler, and there's no run. My prediction is that it will be, making it up on the spot, an Indian victory by 5 wickets. There you go.
Sorry, you said an Indian victory by what?
5 wickets.
5 wickets, okay.
Yep.
And I predict that New Zealand will win by 145 runs. There you go.
Good. I'd be delighted for them if they did, actually. Broad drives this one from the crease to ride extra cover, and he comes through for a single. Captain Williamson applying a bit of sweat to this still relatively new ball. What are the protocols on that? Because weren't the players not able to apply any sort of bodily fluids last year? Does that change now? Has there been?
No, I think they were always allowed to apply sweat, weren't they? But not saliva. Yeah.
Only some sweat.
Oh, well, how do you distinguish between a certain? How do you distinguish the sort of volume of the sweat that you put on the ball?
What about earwax? Was earwax?
I think they're allowed to take sweat off their head, but not their body, or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay.
I do recall something along those lines.
And not for the first time today, Burns has been sconned. That's going to be another helmet change, another delay, so we can crack on with some more social media, I'm sure, if we have some messes.
We've got a couple more on YouTube. Iwas Iftikhar says Rory Burns played slow. He has indeed. He's almost come to a standstill. And he also says England should have brought in their A team, which is, yes, it's an interesting question and one we've discussed a bit up to now. But I've got to say, from a distance, England's batting looks particularly fragile once you take Root and Burns out of the equation.
Well, it's fragile if you play shots like Dan Lawrence played today. It's just basic desire to occupy the crease that is required of England's batsmen, to be honest. I mean, Pope looked edgy early on. His first couple of boundaries were through the slips, one of them which he was definitely trying to turn to mid-wicket. They were talking on the TV about the fact that so many England batsmen now take their guard on off stump, and that seems to me a dangerous thing to do, especially when you've got the Lord's slope, especially when the slope means that the ball is naturally coming into you. And that's exactly what Pope did. He was right over on off stump. So when Southey angled one in, having bowled a series of balls beforehand which were just wide of off stump, he's got nowhere to go. He's got to get his bat round in front of his pad. His first movement brings his pad into line with the ball, and he's got to reach it. He's got to get round that pad, and he can't.
Yeah, and certainly what he did today was basically play down the wrong line.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. But that's always going to if you're risking doing that when you're so far over. If he'd been much more on leg stump, the ball comes into you. The first movement of his front foot will have taken it straight down from leg stump as opposed to from off stump.
Yeah, and I know he takes guard like that anyway. But also credit to Southey, because Southey had been almost drawing him across his crease and throwing a couple wider and challenging the outside edge, and so then he did the other one. Just really skillful bowling as well. But yeah, I do think Pope's got to look at that. Shall we change now that we're in
as well
hiatus?
Yeah, okay.
So we'll leave you in the capable hands of, it's going to be Tony, Forthy and Al, I believe. Is that right?
Or hands. I'm not sure how capable.
You need hands.
But they are. Well, you need hands to hold a little baby. You need hands to wipe away a tear. Yeah, that was an interesting question, by the way, about the World Test Series Championship. I think it is interesting because New Zealand will have had the benefit of 2 matches against, well, slightly weakened, but nonetheless a good opposition. India will have familiarity in the surroundings at Southampton because they're already kind of camped there. English conditions, you would say, would favour New Zealand, but
I think it's going to be a draw.
Of all the grounds, Southampton possibly is the one that can serve up the most placid batting-friendly surface.
Weather-affected draw.
I would still just shade New Zealand because of match practice in England, even allowing for those other considerations. But I'm not going to admit by how much or kind of put my neck out that far. But that would be my general gut feel. What about you, Al?
I think it's going to be a draw.
You think a draw?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. We'll ask Forthy in a minute. Actually, we'll ask him now because I'm not sure Jameson is quite ready. Yes, he is. So actually, we'll have to wait until after this ball. Jameson's going to be bowling 2. Rory Burns, who's on 89. Burns drops the bat on that and just steers it really to backward point. Where do you stand on that World Test Championship final, Forthy?
Yeah, no, I understand the logic behind going for New Zealand, but I'm going to go for India, just having lived through the Australia-India Test series out here, and almost any side would have collapsed on the last day of that series, but India did not, and I was incredibly impressed by their resilience and application, and I would therefore put India ahead of this New Zealand team.
Well, that's fair enough. As Jameson turns at the top of his mark, he's going to be in again to Rory Burns, who's edging towards those nervous 90s. Oh, that's a big shot. Has he got him in front? Looked a little high to me. No interest to the umpire, and we will move on. 2:15 for 8. The other thing I think that India should definitely draw solace from is that if I'm suggesting New Zealand, I'm almost invariably wrong based on recent history. So of my predictions, so they should be hugely encouraged by the fact that they're almost nailed on to win once I predicted New Zealand. Yeah, that was very, very high, and it might have even got a bit of inside edge. Do you see a bit of inside edge there as well?
I thought maybe it pitched outside leg stump.
Yeah,
but apart from that, apart from all those things, it was fine.
Apart from just about everything not going for it. In comes Jameson over the wicket to the left-hander, who plays it nicely to square leg, and they run a very sharp single indeed. In fact, I think they they did run a single, bring Broad onto strike, although it won't because it was last ball of the over. Which of you two fine gentlemen is taking care of our messaging?
C'est moi. The old fart was smart with "you wouldn't be using any sweat if we had 11 cooks." Warren, are you good folk going to commentate on the WTC final? Immediately, an internal reply, "We are indeed." And Leah...
That was me. I was that internal reply.
Well done. We've got our best men on it. Then Leah, "That sweat rule is stupid. Everyone knows that bull sweat is best sweat for bull maintenance. Also makes perfume bulls even more unpleasant." Slightly enigmatic, but I think we get the gist.
Yes. Anyway, Neil Wagner, Mr. Wagner, is going to continue. Got that drop in the last over, so he'll be nicely fired up. But Burns, who's now on 90, of course, just drops the bat on that. It's away into the offside. There's no run. 2:16 for 8. Burns 90 not out. Stuart Broad, whose mission really is just to stay there. He can do it, but I suppose there's going to be some thinking in that New Zealand camp that let Wagner work him over a bit on the grounds that his appetite for short pitch bowling has waned somewhat.
Nah,
over the years. In the case of Stuart Broad,
I think he's at a point now where he'll just, if it's short, he'll just try to hook it.
He may do. Wagner, in he comes, left arm over. Burns, a little bit tucked up, but he's able to work it off his hip away to deep mid wicket and will just take a single. So
I've got a slightly controversial point of view on Broad very quickly. I felt he completely gave up the ghost until about 3 years ago. And I do feel he's tried to put his game back together. We all know why it fell apart.
Yep.
I was at Melbourne and he scored a rather impressive, completely flat track, of course, but he scored a rather impressive 60 or 70, and they were aiming at his head for the first half hour.
Yeah. Well, that's after a while. You should, if it doesn't work, you need to move on to plans B and C, don't you? But yeah, I take your point. And I've got another thought to build on that for a second, but we'll wait for Wagner to come in, and that one was short. Just as we were saying, Neil Wagner, the enforcer, digs it in. Broad rocks back. Has a slightly, well, I was expecting that look of resignation on his face, to be honest. What was I going to say? I was going to build on something about Broad. Yeah, I mean, the more senior you get, and the more the likes of Robinson, Stone, Archer, come into the frame, the more Broad might just be thinking, putting a few scores together with the bat is going to potentially extend my usefulness or life to this team. I mean, he is and has been magnificent, but everybody's time must come, and I suppose we've been talking about it for 2 years with both him and Jimmy. But a few runs won't half help him out. Wagner around the wicket, swing and a miss from Broad. That probably is not a shot to persuade anyone about that. Wagner has his hands on his head. Good bowling from him.
Just pitched the ball up a little bit fuller.
Yeah, no, he did. He did. He'll mix it up against Broad. He came wide around the wicket there, and actually it didn't get up much, did it? Was that a deliberately slower ball? Broad tried to knock the leather off it, almost swung himself off his feet, and that only missed the top of middle stump by the merest smidgenette.
No, he's gone back. He's gone back over the wicket. I think he's trying to.
He's not letting Broad settle. He's trying all kinds of things. He's got one slip in place. In comes Wagner. Broad pulls this one. Has he got enough of it? He has. It's away to deep mid wicket, and it's a fine shot from Broad. It's gone all the way for a maximum. The Bears shifted position on my screen. He's normally at the top. That's the thing. Box office. Yes, it was box office.
No, it's because I said box office my arse. I think he is the most agricultural of tens. And I think when he hits a shot like that, it's an anecdote to a blind squirrel finding an acorn. And that
I've also got to say, if your arse was the show, I'm not sure I'd be queuing up at any box office for the opportunity to see it. But there we go. 2:23 for 8. Stuart Broad has decided, well, if Wagner's going to drop him short, I'm going to hit one. One nearly bowled him. The next one he absolutely launched over deep square leg. So he moves on to 10. So England
blind squirrels probably have a rather good sense of smell. Probably makes up for their lack of eyesight.
Wagner in. Bowled. There it
box
was.
Office that. Hendo. Box office that.
Well, it was. And Broad had a swing. He had a miss. He's off. Stump is pegged back. England are 9 down, and Burns is going to need some nurturing to get to that ton, I'm afraid. But Broad's not going to be around to do it.
I won't look back, 'cause by the time that I do, you'll be gone.
He goes for 10, 6 and out, swing and a miss, done for.
When they show that again, it even from that full pitch, it did seem like the ball pitched a little. It's not just keeping low. The pitch, the ball that Wagner bowled that took Burns' edge seemed to bounce a little bit higher than normal, and that one nearly bounced over the top of our stump, and it really had no right to do so. So there does seem to be demons in the pitch.
Well, yes, but let's wait and see until New Zealand bat. Young Conway, not young in terms of Test match, but he's 29, isn't he? Is Devon Conway. He may make it look a mill pond placid pitch on which to bat. We shall see. England really have helped themselves. New Zealand have bowled well, but I can look, for example, at the dismissal of Lawrence and think that really wasn't a shot to play on your third delivery in a backs to the wall test match against a quality attack. And, so it's a little bit of not helping themselves, I fear. It's Jimmy anyway. Jimmy Anderson. He's probably thinking, here I go again. I was doing it in India, I'm doing it again. We're behind the total we're chasing. I've got to stand up and do the batsman's job for him.
Andy Zoltzman dug a rather good stat.
Which was, yes.
Which was that Devon Conway's double century was the 200th double century in Test match cricket.
I can hear a jingle sort of going on in the background. Are you playing a jingle, Bear?
It's Jimmy Anderson's jingle.
Well, none of us had any idea that you were. That was the problem. So you'll need to go back to signalling. A bit of semaphore, I think, wouldn't go amiss, or Morse code. Anything to let us know that that's happening. Otherwise, we'll be cheerfully chirping away over the top of it. 2:23 for 9. England trail by 155. Last man at the crease is Jimmy Anderson. Rory Burns is there on 91. He has had a life, much to the chagrin of Neil Wagner.
You've got to give this a go, haven't you, if you're Rory Burns?
Well, let's see. Burns it is who's facing. He's facing Jameson, and he drives, but he drives straight to cover, and there will be no run. That was the last ball over from Wagner.
Annie on the socials, originally at the start of the match, was asked, who's going to be man of the match? She said, I'm going for an exciting draw with Burns man of the match. I'm always wrong. And now she's tweeted, Devon Conway aside, my prediction for the match and the draw isn't as ridiculous as some seem to suggest.
Oh, was that our Annie? Annie Chase?
Yes.
Oh, she was. Yes. I know she was at Lord's yesterday. I don't know if she is today. She was sending pictures. I was asking what she had for breakfast. She seemed to have a wide choice of. This one's cut. Backward a point. That should be 4. Is there a man coming around? Yes, there is. A man from riding the boundary. It's Mitchell Santner, and it will restrict Burns to 2. Take him on to 93. Yeah, yesterday she was basically there, getting, I would imagine, several sheets to the wind, and she did send us a picture of the breakfast menu, which looked fabulous
and expensive.
Her champagne breakfast, and expensive, I suspect. I asked which BAP she was having, and the answer was all of them. So,
well, there you go.
I'm sure she was having a good day.
What's the food like there on a county day, Tony?
Very good.
Because it's your home ground, isn't it?
It is my hometown. Although I do tend to. I'll just wait. As I say, in comes Jameson. This one's pulled by Burns. It's upish. Has he got enough of it? Ooh, was that a drop? He's going to get 4 more, though. I don't think it was a drop.
Or was there
he's moved on to 97.
Come on, Roy.
To see a replay as to whether that went through hands there. We'll have a look. Jameson pitches it short. Burns has a swing. It's right up high over square leg umpire. And no, it was a bit of a comedy dive and fall. Jameson looked a bit crestfallen, but it's 4 more for Burns.
I think as he died, he realised he couldn't get there and tried to spread himself to stop the ball, and it's kind of it's gone underneath him, hit his undercarriage and gone for 4.
Jameson in, worked off his legs nicely. That's also down to deep square. He should get a single. He does. He's going to be trusting Jimmy Anderson now. On 98, Anderson will have 2. Oh, you can hear the less than confident Owl Hotchkiss. Worried of the Wirral. Tell me, worried of the Wirral. How can we help you?
Well, thank you, Tony. First time, long time. What advice can Rory Burns give him? Just like, don't get out.
Well, I think in Jimmy's case, I think I know the answer. Might be a 2-word one. That's often something else. If I was to offer that advice to him, because I think he probably knows that.
Got it.
In comes Jameson, slightly short. Anderson, did he wear that a little bit?
Yeah.
He did. It's just sort of touch of the Brian Closes there. It's only on it for a second. The ball's only on you for a second. It won't hurt. But that one did bumble away into the offside. We'll have another look.
I don't know. The look on Anderson. Oh, it's hit him on his 38-year-old hip there, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it has. It has.
I guess it's okay if it hits you on a fleshy part of the body, but the hip is traditionally unfleshy.
Indeed. 98 though, Burns, but Anderson has another ball to face from the 6'8" Jameson, New Zealand, in more ways than one, sniffing blood.
Anderson looks less than reluctant. he does seem a little bit. He's like, have I got to face the last one? Do you want it instead?
He doesn't really have a choice now.
Yeah, I know.
He's a bit stuck with it.
Yeah,
Jameson will be barreling in from the pavilion end. The answer to your question, by the way, is the food in the pavilion is very good.
Yeah,
for county games. Although I do still tend to take my own fare.
All right.
In comes Jameson. That one again is short, and Anderson does get on top of that and gets a very, very, very warm round of applause for seeing off those two balls. The crowd here, limited though it may be, they want to see those three figures for Burns, who's on 98, will face the next over. Who's on social? That's you again, Ian, isn't it?
It is indeed. Warren, given the potential of a typical British summer, might there be rain day /S for the WTC final?
Apparently
there is a day. I think there is a reserve day.
Okay.
There is a reserve day to get a result. Yes, there is. That is written into the conditions of that game.
Well, isn't that only a reserve day because of weather? It's not a reserve day because we've played 5 days and we haven't got a result.
No, absolutely. It's a reserve day for weather. It's not play on until somebody wins. No.
The old sixth day we used to have up until the mid-70s. Gross point anti-far. Line squirrels can at least play a forward defensive shot, referring to Broad.
I've never seen one play, and I see a lot of squirrels dancing around my garden, but I've never offered them the opportunity to, go through throwdowns to them to see how they go on. They do steal the birds' nuts, though.
We're going to have to identify those birds before the end of this.
Well, I can tell you a few, as in comes Wagner. That's away, a bit outside edgy. Burns has one, it's gone down to third man. He's coming back for two, he's going to get there. Yes, he is. He has that ton, his helmet comes off. It's been slow and cautious, but boy, have England needed it. It's 100 for Rory Burns.
20, 40, 60, 80, 90.
I tried to cue that as obviously as I could bear, so you can play that. Oh, is it my still being played?
267 balls, 11 fours, 3 helmets. Rory Burns, 109.
232 for 9. The England dressing room are on their feet. They know that the longer these two can stay there, then the better the chances of England rescuing something out of this game. They're 146 they trail now.
It's still a long way, isn't it, Tony?
That is a long way. Be interesting, very interesting indeed. We did hear one of our, I'll just hold this as Wagner is in to Burns, who plays that really tidily, just dabs it down to third slip, and there is no run. Yeah, there was the question as whether New Zealand might have de Grandhomme coming in at 3, for example, as a pinch hitter. I don't think so. I think it's their mood they'll play sensibly. They could be in an incredibly strong position by lunch tomorrow if they get this final England pair split tonight, and obviously they will. We haven't even reached tea yet. In comes Wagner, driven superbly by Burns, up, away, down the ground. That's going to be 4 more to him. Beautiful shot.
That was the attempted slower Yorker by Wagner, and Burns was well on top of it.
I know you give him a V.
Yeah.
As opposed to everyone else who calls him Wagner.
Wagner.
But you've got a sort of Bulgarian kind of Wagner as opposed to...
well, who conducted the Ring
Neil
Opera?
Wagner. That was Wagner, quite right.
And how is Wagner spelled?
Exactly as Neil Wagner's is. But okay, I'm not disputing. But I don't think he calls himself that. That one is a swing and a miss by Burns down that leg side.
Well, it's funny you should mention the pronunciation, because Ta Pung Shan has put bye-bye Broady accompanied by a GIF with Robert Wagner behind the wheel.
Okay. Yeah, and one certainly doesn't describe Wagnerian. If you want kind of brooding, dark music, with this kind of a sense of
which does kind of suit his
impending doom
bowling.
and storminess, then Wagnerian is what you would.
And doesn't that suit his bowling?
Well, it does a wee bit.
Does
Two
a wee
slips
bit.
go down. In he comes. This one is cut, late cut, beautifully by Burns. The man at Gully got probably just a hand to it, and it will stop. Just thought they're going to have to run in a hurry back. Is Jimmy there? Yes,
Good
he
work.
is. I'm pretty sure he's back and safe. BJ Watling, of course. Was it this morning or the day before yesterday that he missed?
Today.
That was today.
Yeah, missed the
lose track
stumper.
of time.
If you wanted to upset certain American brewing company when you were working on their business, you pronounced their beer Budweiser. They hated that.
Well, Americans and pronunciation are never too entirely
Not
convinced
easy
one way or the other.
bedfellows.
Not easy bedfellows. Much as I adore all my American friends, of whom I have so many, but I do question their pronunciation sometimes.
That was quite defensive, that, Tony. Some of my best friends are American.
Actually, they are, but there we go. In comes Neil Wagner. And, nicely played by Jimmy. Played that very tidily indeed. Squarely in behind it. He's not looking happy in it with his lot, though, is he, Jimmy? He doesn't look like a man who's thinking, right, now Rory Burns has got to 100, I'll swing for all I'm worth. If this was Tim Murter, I know what he'd be doing. He'd be hitting everything, trying to hit the leather off everything that came his way.
I better get on some socials or I'll get told off.
Ooh, got a hat.
Leah, and Broad is actually the first English batsman to get out for a score ending in 0 to make any runs. Des, if Broad was on 91, don't think he'd like that shot from his partner somehow. Good point. Derek Willis, the hip is traditionally unfleshy, in inverted commas. I invite you to come to America where we put that tradition to the test. That's very good. And Annie, our Annie, hospitality loves all Baps alcohol and salmon FOC.
Salmon what? SOC?
FOC.
Free of charge.
Free of charge salmon.
Free of charge salmon. Look at
How
that.
much was that ticket?
Can't be bad, can it? Smoked, I presume, Annie. Smoked or steamed? I'm intrigued now. And what are you drinking? I'd like to know exactly what you're drinking. As this one, is wide and sort of dabbed at by Burns, not entirely convincingly, and BJ Watling dives away to his left. 107 not out for Burns.
Tarping
Quite
Shan
heavily on the
rather
leg
nice.
side, doesn't he?
Tarping Shan, rather nice little gif with from Mr. Burns from Simpsons with excellent about the ton.
X.
We have one of our jingles is Mr. Burns, isn't it, for Rory Burns?
Ah, right, okay.
239 for 9 England. They still trail by 139. Jimmy Anderson is doing his level best to prolong the end, and Burns swings, and he will swing that all the way to mid-wicket for 4 more. Well played, Rory Burns. And the bear
Nelson
has decided to pick
That
moment
went
for
like a tracer bullet.
little trip to the woods. So that was Al. Box office Al, as we shall now call him.
No, you're all right.
But it won't be for his singing, based on that rendition of that jingle.
Thank you very much.
Way it went. He played that really beautifully, didn't he, Burns? As befits a man who's just made a ton, and it has generally, apart from that horrendous drop, he's going to be facing Jameson again. Steers it away down to long leg. He'll just get a single this time. Will leave Jimmy 3 balls from Jameson to face. And Wagner it was doing the fielding down there at third.
Gross Point Antifar's on fire. As an Englishman living in America, I pronounce Budweiser cat piss.
Yes. Wasn't it the joke about a certain beer and making love in a punt?
Yes, that's right.
Some years ago. Watney's, I think, was the one that used to refer to. As this one is flipped away off his legs quite nicely by Burns. Down it goes again to Neil Wagner, who's being exercised down there at long leg.
Quick one.
3 for 77 for him.
Grand Theft Auto, how often have England openers carried their bat? And then he's gone and answered his own question. But if you want to have a think about them.
Well, Gooch did it against the West Indies, didn't he?
Yes, Gooch is one.
We did have that list up day before yesterday because we were all looking at Conway's as the all-time list of bat carriers.
Well, this is England specifically. England
okay.
this
In
list.
comes Jameson. Burns guides this between second slip and gully. Possibly, had they been a tad closer, he might have been in a spot of bother. As it is, it's run away with the third man, and it'll bring him 4 more.
There's not one boy for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4.
Did he play it down? Yes, he played it well down into the ground. He played it nice soft hands. Jameson, yeah, played that very, very tidily indeed. Just evaded the dive from gully. Tim Southey, I think it was, who was there, but he couldn't lay anything upon it. And it was 4 more to Burns. He's on 115. Jameson will be in to bowl at him. Burns is across his stumps and drives quite superbly through cover for 4 more. Lovely shot. Sorry, go on.
If there is a downside to that shot, it was the last ball of the over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to sound glass half empty. What a cover drive it was, but it's probably his best shot of his innings so far.
What was also interesting was how far he moved his feet there. I mean, he basically walked towards it to play that shot, which is definitely the shot of a man who's feeling pretty confident. Sorry, Forthy.
Indeed. No, they're fine. Just quickly, so to answer the question on England openers carrying their bat, it's Boycott, Hutton, Stewart, Atherton, Gooch and Cook. So Burns will be in esteemed company, as he will.
If he does it. But we've already gone through the process in this match of trying to work out bat carrying, only to be disappointed. Conway, of course, getting run out.
Well, if he doesn't, then it'd be pretty strange for 2 opening bats to be the last wicket in both first innings.
Well, that is very true indeed. And this one beats Jimmy from Wagner.
That would surely be unique, surely.
Well, that's a good question. Where's Knuckle when you need him? If you are listening somewhere, Knuckle, let us
know. I don't know
how
you generate the search for that.
I had a good stat the other day, which I've been waiting for.
Ooh, all right.
No, I like the way that this stat is behind other bits of paper. It's a protected stat.
It's on a needs-to-know basis. So this one is full and whipped away by Anderson, but only to square leg. Mitchell Santner does the fielding, and there is no run.
I wondered how many players had gone to their 200 with a 6, and I was incredulous when I discovered how many the answer was.
Incredulous. It's extraordinarily low or surprisingly high.
Surprisingly high, in my opinion.
Ooh, was it, by Jove? All right, well, that will be an interesting one to guess. Anderson, I'm not giving him. I'm not sure he was just generally trying to get out of the way there. It was full from Wagner, wide of off stump, and Jimmy was basically heading for a pint in the tavern, as far as I can tell. But he's just about got away with it. And we move on, and he survives 1 more ball. Burns 119. Anderson yet to get off the mark from the 6 he's faced, and that really was an extraordinary piece of batting.
The only thing I could think of, Tony, was good luck trying to describe that one.
Well, by the time he'd moved that far back, he'd have had to have 17-foot long arms to have been able to reach it.
Yeah, arms like Mr.
In comes Wagner, full. Jimmy this time does wait, plays it really nice and really late, and guides it away towards third man. 2 New Zealanders converge, and Anderson is away and off the mark. He has, as they say, troubled the scorers.
What's interesting,
that really annoys all scorers when you say it doesn't trouble the scorers, because they get as upset by noughts as they do by any other score. But there we go.
Very troubled.
Played
Lot
that.
to fill in.
That delightfully. So 2 for Anderson. I did, by the way, see a young lad today. He seemed to be sat very much on his own. Don't know how old he was. He had the whole scorebook out.
Yeah, that was great.
Pencils. I thought, good lad. There'll be a cricket club either that he belongs to already, or needs to snap him up as their scorer because he was really concentrating on the job in hand. In comes Wagner, a little bit of swing, beats a little wafty sort of dab from Anderson, and through to Watling it goes.
Bit too good for him, that one, wasn't it, Tim?
It was. He didn't move back quite as far as he had previously. Definite swing. So Anderson definitely got it. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Wagner definitely got it swinging away from Anderson there. 125 now, that deficit. I suppose psychologically, deficit of under 100, albeit I still think quite unlikely. England would consider that something of a recovery after the tumbling of wickets today. Wagner in. Anderson waits, plays it nicely in front of his stumps. The economy of movement of a experienced number 11, who says, well, if it's bang on my middle stump, I've just got to stand there and stick a bat in front of it, which is pretty much what he did. It's the end of the over, and we shall call upon Forthy to bring us more of a message.
Very, very quickly, 17 players have got to their 200 with a 6, including 2 New Zealanders, Sinclair and McCullum, and Gordon Greenwich on this very ground from his carnage of 1984.
Well, these are the 6 hitters to get to a
to
double
200. 17 of them. Anyway, yes,
17.
incredible.
That's a big number.
It is. Anyway, I better get on to the tweets. A lovely picture from Tom Glynn. Rory is very excited about his namesake century. First English Test century since he was born. He's posted the picture of his lovely little child there. Williamson coming on.
Well,
Leah.
Sorry, go on.
Leah, I found a video for those interested in seeing Michael Atherton utter that most Shastri of catchphrases. You can have a look at that. Oh, and quickly, Annie. The salmon was steamed with new potatoes and salad, then afternoon tea. I'm still full now.
Afternoon tea. I hope that was the full. I don't know. Annie being Devonian, I think, even though she's a Somerset fan, how would she have her jam and cream, Al?
Jam first.
Jam first. In
Anything
Devonian
other than
tradition.
jam.
Okay.
Anything other than jam first is wrong. First of all, how do you even get the cream to stick if you don't put the jam on first?
Is that a personal opinion, or is that actually the Devonian way? Well, Kane Williamson, interesting change of bowling, and he serves up an absolute piece of entire filth. I think possibly the psychology here is to.
I don't feel well.
Al, are you all right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This one's cut by Burns down to deep backward point, and I think he decides not to run.
I know it's really great, but tell me, I want to know, have you ever seen Kane
coming down? A little bit of Creedence Clearwater Revival adapted. His best bowling, let me see. Best bowling was versus England, got 4 for 44. That one is a full toss, and it was swung at by Burns, and it's beaten everybody. I don't think he got any bat on that, did he? I think we're going to wait and find out. It was a reverse sweep. Oh, it's just hauled in just short of the boundary rope, in actual fact.
Buys.
Given as buys, indeed it was. 119 for Burns.
Well, he's not giving away anything off the bat, and that's because no one can hit this rubbish.
Mitchell Santner. Oh no, it was. Is Mitchell on for someone?
No, Mitchell's part of the 11.
Ah, well there we go then.
Oh, ooh, that.
Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my question.
No.
Well, what is Kane, who's in the absolute Bertie Bassett mode here? Let's see what he's got this time. That's a good delivery actually, and a little bit of turn too, having found his range a bit. And it's through to Watling after a little bit of a swing from Burns that went nowhere. 119 for Burns. Just conceded a single though, Williamson, in an interesting assortment of deliveries thus far in this over. Round the wicket he comes, plenty of air. Burns comes down the track, pushes to mid-on, takes an easy single. Now, I can only assume that part of the thinking here is to see whether Jimmy would be tempted to have a swing, but surely he's too old and too cagey for that.
It's by my watch 5-4, so maybe this is just the over before tea.
Maybe it could be that. Could be that, or trying to squeeze one in case they could get one extra over before tea. There's all these things at play. I don't think they will.
Jam first is my own personal preference, but I think it's also Devonian.
Williamson in, back foot by Anderson. Steered beautifully away to deep cover, and they don't run. They would have done were they not conscious that the very next ball to be bowled will be faced by Burns, and they'd rather he was facing it than Anderson. England trail by 121, 257.49. Looks like we will get another over.
I'm very behind on my YouTubes, so I'm going to go very fast. Dara Azizi, the only thing England have got right in this test is not to have picked a spinner. And what lead do you think New Zealand will settle for? Good question, Dara, from Nick Reed. I'll think they'll want to be on the shore side and not be too sporting in the declaration. 330 plus, I think.
Yeah.
Dougie 4, sounds like a German pronouncing an American beer. Nick Reed, Budweiser isn't beer though, chaps, it's fancy water. Not that fancy, Nick, from Dara Azizi. Nick Reed, yeah, true. Dara Azizi, I use it to flush my drains. Nick, what in his red barrel? Okay, why wasn't Burns playing this way earlier? From Dara Azizi. And Nick Reed, Alan sadly looks rather like Piers Morgan.
Whoa!
Is that true?
Block that human being. Block that human being.
257 for 9. Oh. Let's have a look. As that one is full and tried to work it away to leg. Gets a thump on the pad, but it was well outside of leg stump by the time it did, and no interest or appeals from anyone, I'm glad to say. Well, actually, it was maybe a little bit closer than I thought, but I think it picked outside leg.
But no one seemed interested, did they?
Nobody seemed interested. 257 for 9. Burns is in. This one is driven again, backward a point, and he decides not to run. So Rory Burns is in 2s, 4s, 6s mode, and anything that involves putting Jimmy in front of anybody is to be well and truly eschewed for now, I think. I'm going to have another look at that. Yeah, it was missing down leg side, but possibly a little closer than I originally gave it credit for. But there's clear daylight between leg stump and the line of ball tracker. Neil Wagner turns, barrels in. Swing! A huge swing from Burns and a miss, and through to Watling it goes, who wattles very proficiently to take it behind the stumps. 257, 58 now for 9, I beg your pardon. Well taken by Watling. Burns, clearly it's got to be any shot that doesn't involve getting Jimmy onto strike is the order of the day here. Wagner, who's operating from that nursery/Tim Murter end. In he comes, works nicely off his legs. I think that's going to go all the way into the square leg boundary. What a super shot that was. Picked it up quite magnificently, and it's 4 more.
It's Nissan She. It's Nissan She.
Looked like nothing more than a push, didn't it, Tony?
Well, he's seeing it well. Wagner chucks it down, doesn't he? And yeah, everything to like about that shot.
Just beautifully timed.
Good wrist, roll the wrist. A wristy flick, indeed. Which does sound like the name of a film star. Of a certain type of genre of film, I suspect, but there we go. 261 in there. Wristy flick. 261 for 9. Let's move on as quick as we can before I
medication for Mr. Bishop, please.
Wagner, in he comes, full, met tidily by Burns to push it to mid-on, and there's no run. Colin de Grandhomme is the ball shiner in chief. That magnificent mullet hanging out from the back of his sun hat. And he throws the ball back to the enforcer, Neil Wagner. He hasn't been able to enforce this final wicket as yet. In he comes and beats Burns on the inside edge, but it goes through to Watling, 84 miles an hour, and there is no run. It's the end of that over. 261 for 9. Now that should be tea by my reckoning.
Yeah,
but no one's going anywhere.
They're 9 down, so they've taken the extra.
Oh, because they're 9 down. Thank you. Very good. A little bit of noises off from the green room, from the studio.
It's like the voice of my conscience. It really, it's just like.
I don't know if he muted himself, but he did say it's because they're 9 down, and clearly the next words were going to be either fuckwit or idiot. Because, certainly in the way it was
I said that off mic tone.
But
does this mean we can't check out and we can never leave either? Rather like
yes.
Mitchell Santner is going to be brought into the attack. None for 22 for him so far. 8 overs, 3 maidens. Economical, yes. Penetrative, not yet. He will be bowling to Jimmy Anderson.
The Kane Williamson experiment lasts 1 over.
Well, I think it might just have been a way to maybe mix shuffle his bowling pack a little bit.
Santner baby, get some drift into the pads for me. Been an awful good Kiwi.
Well, of course, with
Santner
could have had
and
that
dart them
stumping,
in quickly
but
tonight.
made a horrific Horlicks of it, didn't he?
Well, I think you quite rightly said at the time, if it was Butler or if it was Bairstow, then there would have been apoplexy.
We would have been. I think he added insult to injury by then taking the stumps, by knocking the bails off with just his gloves. Well, long after the ball had gone.
Well, I was on ball by ball, and I just saw the stumps be demolished, and I was like, he's out. And then I saw the ball dribble away.
Jimmy's taking a fresh guard here, scratching his mark like a man who intends to stay around for a while. England certainly could do with him doing that. 261 for 9, 117 they trail by. Mitchell Santner will be bowling from that pavilion end. He's got a forward short leg as well as a slip. And in he comes, gives it some air. And Jimmy, predictably enough, puts that big old front foot forward, bat tidily next to it, and there is no run. 261 for 9. 2 off 11 for Jimmy.
This ball go.
Santner's again a funny little stop in his. This one attempted reverse sweep from Jimmy. Oh, he's getting confident now. Top edges it. There was a run there, and he decided it wasn't a good idea to take it, which I thought was kind of interesting, largely because it wasn't that would have been.
I don't think anyone knew where it went.
Well, I don't think he knew where it went. Latham turned who was the man at short leg to go after it. But also it would have been Rory Burns' call, but it was Jimmy who said, no thanks, I'm all right dealing with it here. That's a big shout for LBW, but I think it was too high, too much bounce. Santner's not interested, and we will move on to 61 for 9.
Tell you one thing we haven't
side
seen,
edge as well.
Yes, one thing we haven't seen much of in this match is the Lord's wobble just before it gets through to the keeper.
Yeah, no, possibly not.
Don't know why.
Well, it's been by and large decent weather. That one really came back in out the footmarks to Anderson, who had already stepped back. But goodness me, he got some turn. But I'm pretty sure that'll be footmark related, is it? Yeah, well, goodness, it certainly came in. What a foot! Jimmy has a big old smile from under that helmet back at Santner, who will be in again to bowl the 5th ball of his over. Jimmy's forward again. No run once more. Interesting game of cat and mouse, this. Anderson, who has no particular desire to score. Santner, who's trying to tease and torment him into some form of error. More company around the bat. We've now got a silly mid-off, a forward short leg, and we have a leg slip as well. And Jimmy just have a little stroll away to compose himself before facing this last ball of the Santner over.
He backed away when Williamson moved, as if to go, what are you standing behind there for?
Yeah. Let's see what Santner can deliver. 261 for 9. Anderson 2 off 15. And Jimmy looks to sweep. And he gets a round of applause actually from. I'm not sure if Santner was applauding the fielding or he's applauding the attempted sweep. Nonetheless, he survived the over as Jimmy. And actually, who's that? It was
Ross Taylor.
Ross Taylor at slip, who seemed to be sort of falling backwards and just managed to get an arm down right in front of his ankles, which for a more senior player is quite supple. So well done, Ross.
Just
261 for
a
9.
few quick tweets and so forth. Farong, come on, Joe, declare.
I think that's
Dan
not
De
going to happen.
Castro, probably not. Dan De Castro, realistically, New Zealand will bat until lunch. 300 run lead, 68 overs left. Likely draw both sides. Slight win chance. Probably may not be far off. Nick Reed, economical but not penetrative. Matron. Dan De
Wagner's
Castro.
going to be in too. Burns, who was looking to sort of guide this down to third man, but diving stop from BJ Watling, very well stopped indeed, as the Wizard of the Wirral lets you know. 261 for 9. Fourthie, just chuck in a few more between deliveries.
Yeah, just a couple more. Dan De Castro, indeed, better than pictures, lol. And Dara Azizi, give Burns the strike, for fuck's sake.
Well, he has got the strike. Jimmy saw out the Santner over. Wouldn't say completely comfortably, but he did. Wagner in full outside of off stump. Burns has a swing and doesn't really get hold of that, and it dribbles rather apologetically to point, and there is no run. 261 for 9, 117 behind are England.
I'm new to Twitter. Does it feed you at what it thinks you're interested in? It thinks I'm interested in Kim Kardashian opening up about the feeling like her failure as a marriage to Kanye West was declined. I'm not very interested in that.
Well, is that using our Twitter feed?
Yes.
Okay, and this one, this is very a big shout for OBW. I don't think there's going to be anything given there. Looked like it didn't have too much going for it.
I'd review that.
Well, Wagner's.
Go on, you got two. Go on, you got
DRS
two.
time is ticking down.
Go on, you got to
They have
mind it.
2 left. I don't think they're going to. No, Wagner's just going to get on with things. Oh, Williamson, he had. Was that a signal to review?
I think
In the
so.
nick of time. I think
Yes,
with
it
9
has been
down.
reviewed.
Got
Yeah,
to say, why wouldn't you? That's the. Even
think
if
this
you.
is- I think this is close.
That was definitely out.
Was that definitely out?
I don't know.
Because he's kind of walked across his stumps a little bit.
Let's have a look. Well, he did, but I think it was going
Or was
down.
he
the leg.
inside edged it?
I don't think there was an inside edge there.
It's like
Ultra Edge, we're having a look. Does Ultra Edge flicker?
Nope.
No, it doesn't. It does, of course, but only when the ball thumps into the pad.
I think it's clipping at best.
Given not out.
Umpire's
call. It was probably clipping, as you heard from Ian there. But the umpire's decision will be retained. It's not out. And Burns survives. I do notice on our Twitter feed, I quite often, therefore, when I'm doing it, I'll suddenly get messages about AFC Wimbledon. I wonder why. but there you go. In comes Wagner again. Crosses stumps, lofted by Burns. Oh, goodness me, that's high over mid-wicket, into the tavern stand. Goodness me, that's 6 more for him. What a shot.
Dear me, where's that been?
Well, he's
Goodness
going to
gracious.
be batting for the London Spirit in the 100, I think, isn't he, Rory Burns? He's not normally one you associate with carting the ball to all points of the ground, but he got down on one knee and he absolutely launched that.
I'm not sure how many times that's happened to Neil Wagner in recent memory.
Well, 1 for 83 for Wagner, who's got that single wicket, but he's being expensive to get to it. 111 England trail by. Burns has moved on to 130. 267 for 9.
Reminiscent of Stokes off Hazelwood, that one at Headingley.
Yeah.
Yep. 267 for 9. Wagner bowling for all he's worth from that nursery end. There's a ring of 1, 2, 3, 5 fielders on that offside for Burns, who drives, but he drives straight to short mid-wicket, and there will be no run. Colin de Grandon does the fielding, takes the opportunity to wipe a bit of sweat on the ball while he's doing it.
He seems like a completely different batsman, doesn't he, since getting to the 3 figures? It's like being 9 downs. He's had to take a couple of chances to get to his century, which he did really well, and now seems like he's in the form of his life.
In comes Wagner. Full, and he doesn't really get hold of that at all. He'll be a little bit annoyed about that, Will Burns, because it was a full toss and he didn't really get hold of it, and it went straight to short mid wicket, and there is no run. End of the over, I think.
Some clarification from Leah. Nah, Twitter just promotes whoever pays them money. Fair enough. And Warren, this is interesting. Tony's Twitter feed is literally that, listening to the bird noise background.
Yes, Luigi's hopping around looking for his tea. The parakeets are tucking into their peanuts. It should be time any moment now for the two foxes to emerge from their den and start to hunt down their tea as well. So it'll all be happening in the Bishop Garden.
That's no way to talk about the family, is it, Tony?
Yes.
And quickly, Dan De Castro, Jimmy doing good job here too, correct? Wow, what an innings, Bernie. Nick Reed, is Southey injured? Well, Wagner has bowled absolute dross, in my opinion. And Dara Azizi, what's the partnership? Dan De Castro, 45-something?
If Burns, of course, goes on to 134, that would be his best in Test, his highest score so far, 133, which he got at Edgbaston versus Australia. When was that? Can't remember, actually. This one from Santner
2 years ago in... 2 years ago in the first Test that we lost at Edgbaston.
That's right. You are right. He got 133. Anderson's taken the single, brings Burns on to strike. That was exactly what... He couldn't have scripted that better for England. Jimmy gets himself off the strike, lets Burns therefore have it. And I think Jimmy will be very disappointed if he has to face another ball this over, Al.
Yes. Partnerships up to 45.
They're going beautifully, aren't they? Going beautifully indeed. Oh, that's not bad.
So how many parakeets have you got to?
Well, I mean, they're not pets, they're wild.
Oh, they're all right.
So thousands is the answer. I unlike the magpies, I don't know them by name. The fox has emerged for a little bit of sunbathing before he goes off to score his tea. This one is swung away down to deep backward square.
Oh,
and they do take a single, and they will bring Jimmy back onto strike. So that is an interesting move. We got that one wrong, Al. 269 for 9.
We get lorikeets and magpies rather than parakeets and magpies, this being Australia.
Ah, right there. Anderson will face Santner. Again, there's a slip and the forward short leg. In comes Santner. Reverse swept by Jimmy. Nearly reverse sweeps it onto his own stumps in the process. But he gets another single. He'll move on to 4. Burns will be back onto strike. Another notch taken out that New Zealand lead. Down to 108 now. He's not afraid to attempt his shots, but he really could have ended very ingloriously there by chopping it onto his own stumps, Jimmy. And once more, he was very happy to run to the non-striker's end, I think. Santner, who has 3 balls left of this over. The first one comes into Burns, who waits and guides away down to deep backward point. Their unmistakable, mulleted, floppy-hatted de Grandhomme does the fielding.
He's a commentator's dream, isn't he? You're not going to confuse him with anyone else, in
Well, yeah, you are going to be able to spot him. Him and Jameson. You're never really going to confuse with anyone else, are you? 271 for 9. Santner from that pavilion end to Anderson, who waits and cuts away to the deep cover boundary and cuts for 4 excellent runs. Jimmy, well played indeed. The bear disappeared again. Oh no, there it is.
I'm always reminded when you say like unmistakable of the Romania team in one of the World Cups who had a dispute with the press, and so in between games they all dyed their hair blonde.
Yes, they do. I remember that.
So they came out like looking like a Sabutio team. And of course it's like well, who is anybody?
275 for 9. In comes Santner and beats the outside edge of a forward prod from Jimmy, but Jimmy survives again. It's another over that England have eaten away. 103 behind they are. 40.
I'm pretty sure that was 1998, and I remember dear old Jimmy Hill with a very earnest face, saying, if it could give them just 1% advantage on the field because it confuses their opponents, it's worth it.
Yeah. Jimmy. But just back to the cricket for a second. That also brought up the 50 partnership. That excellent 4 from him.
Very impressive.
52 so far.
And Ravi Nair says, is Burns playing the perfect innings?
He's certainly playing well, Ravi. And he's making a good case for himself because I don't think he really nailed himself into that position. We're going to have a change of bowling, and the Bear is going to play a jingle.
To fly with Tim Southey to tonight. I probably won't fly with Tim Southey. And again, I just might.
It is. And 275 for 9. Southey is going to bowl from that nursery end to Burns, who swings, misses as a huge shot for a catch behind. Yes, is it not? I think it is. He's taken the edge, and the innings will come to a conclusion at 275. Watling has done the damage with the catch. Southey has delivered the perfect delivery. Probably a slightly tired shot from Burns, feathered a little edge through to Watling, and that extra time towards tea has finally worked in New Zealand's favour. England are all out for 275, trailing by 103 runs. Bear.
Southey's best bowling performance. 6 for 43, which is better than his 6 for 50.
Indeed. Sorry, Bear, I thought you were going to play a wicket jingle. That was all.
No, I forgot.
Oh, you forgot. I wasn't to know that. I was just I was queuing up. Well, that's an interesting. Tease things up quite nicely. England, with the Calypso from earlier, they might well think that's actually better than we might have hoped for. New Zealand, with a lead of over 100, will feel they're very much in the box seat. So I would say, and I think they would be. Would you agree with that, chaps?
I think with
they would. Yeah.
No, sorry. No. If the deficit had been over 150, I would say that New Zealand winning would have been the most probable outcome. But with the lead being closer to 100, then it's going to be very difficult for New Zealand to put the runs on the board in order to be able to put England under scoreboard pressure in the fourth innings.
I totally agree. Yeah, I agree with your analysis.
Yeah, so I would go along with that.
So that could well be a match-saving innings by Rory Burns.
Yeah, and I'll just sweep up the last tweets, particularly on Burns. Leah, it's a really good one. I don't think it's perfect. Nothing ever is, referring to Burns' innings. I think the closest to perfection I ever saw was Kusal Pereira in that innings in South Africa. Grand Theft Auto, is this already a classic innings from Burns? I can't help thinking of Cook or someone more established had done this. We'd be dribbling a bit more. Amazing temperament and got the talent and touch too. And also follows up with, and I suggested they should be dropped before this game too, in print, field chastened. And Des, any contenders in the GPL?
Ooh, I was going to ask that actually as we headed towards tea. Bear, can you give us a GPL update?
What did England start on 111 this morning? Was it 111?
111 for 2.
So they've got what, 157 so far. A session to go. The scores on the GPL are 233, 237, 241, 243, 247, 253, 255, 257, 259, 260. I reckon someone's got a good chance here, haven't they? Around about that. If there's 100 runs in the last session, it'll be 257.
And what's the pot?
The pot will be, there's 31 entries today. On top of, so it'll be 64, 65 quid, something about that.
I'll buy you a pint or two.
It will do.
Yes, I
mean, there's a lot of scores that could be in contention depending on how quick they go. I mean, the lowest score 233, the highest score that's in contention outside my two testers is 307, which would be 150 runs in the last extended session. Them trying to chase putting runs on the board. They got 150. They don't need another 100 before lunch tomorrow to have England 270 behind. No, if they got another 100 in the morning session and 150 today, they'd be 300 odd ahead by lunch tomorrow if they really put the foot on today. Can't see them doing it, but you never know.
Well. Okay, so 111 for 2. England started on. They lost route for the first ball of the morning, so he went for 42. Caught Ross Taylor off the bowling of Jameson. Ollie Pope made 22 before he was LBW to Southey. Lawrence didn't last long at all, faced just 2 balls. Caught de Grandon bowled Southey. Bracey lasted just 6 balls for a debut duck. Bowled Southey. Ollie Robinson batted very well in a partnership alongside Rory Burns before he was finally out 42. Caught Jameson, bowled Southey. Mark Wood, a 3-ball duck, caught behind off Jameson. Broad was bowled Wagner, having hit an enormous 6. Jimmy Anderson, the not out batsman. So again, just as in the first innings for New Zealand, we were on the cusp of celebrating a back carrying effort from an opening batsman, and it wasn't to be. Burns was the last man out for England. From the bowling perspective, 6 for 43 for Tim Southey. Now I was just going to quickly look at his figures at Lords. 6 for 50, so he's beaten his best at Lords comprehensively. 6 for 50, 6 for 43, so well done to him. 3 for 85 for Jameson, none for 24 for Colin de Molay. Neil Wagner 1 for 83, none for 30 for Wagner, and a funny old over of none for 2 for Kane Williamson. England trail by 103, and we will see you after tea. Thank you very much.
Hub in a way. I mean, they 10 of the 20 guys that went on the tours were from Barbados. So it was important to me to talk to their contemporaries. And when I was in Sydney here, I got the numbers of a few of the test batsmen, the Barbados test batsmen of that time. And and one of them, he was a bit offhand, and he said, look, if you're here, maybe give us a call. He wasn't particularly helpful, and it seemed like, he was very eager for the call to end, But I eventually got to Barbados. I thought, hell, I'm here. I got to call him. I've got to make the most of it. And so I did. I called him Saturday. Sorry, not on a Saturday. It was just on probably about 6 o'clock in the evening, and I told him who I was, and he wasn't too impressed by that. He said, "Yeah, I remember you. Yeah." And then I said, can I just have 10 minutes of your time? I want to ask you about one of the rebels in particular that you made your debut with. And he said to me that he didn't care how far I'd travelled around the world to see him. He didn't care that that I had a wife and kids. He didn't care that I'd paid out all this money to come there off my own bat. He didn't care that I was, only probably 5 or 10 minutes away from him, and he told me in no uncertain terms. And he essentially told me to go and shove it, because he wanted nothing to do with me, and he didn't want to hear any more of my story. And he then told me that, when he was a test cricketer, we didn't get paid a lot, and he sort of had this sort of rant about his own problems, I suppose. And then he essentially told me to get effed, at the end, and that was it. So I felt a little bit down about that, and that was at 6 o'clock. But later that night, I had to go and see Emerson Trotman, who was one of the rebels, and probably the least famous. I mean, Emerson Trotman is not a name that turns most cricket fans' heads, because he never played for the West Indies, and his contributions were mainly with Barbados and in South Africa and in Holland as well. But so I went along to his bar in St. Lawrence Gap, the glitzy area of just out of Bridgetown there, and I sort of sidled up to him, and he wasn't happy to see me, and he sort of told me that, if I wrote anything bad about him, that he'd sue me, and he didn't want to be a part of the book, and that although he did sign my sort of autograph book, my leather-bound autograph book that I brought along for all the rebels to sign. He signed that. So it was a pretty horrible little meeting that we had. Although he did give me a beer, he gave me a free Banks beer, which I downed rather quickly. But then I just sat there, just sort of watching him perform his bar tasks and watching karaoke singers, and sort of British tourists.
That sort of sums up a little bit some of the schizophrenic nature, almost, of some of the stories that you tell in that book. You had players who were clearly good enough to go on that tour.
Yeah.
Great achievements. Feelings of guilt and uncertainty about whether they should have done it. It sounds to me like that almost encapsulates a bit that sort of thin dividing line between the way they feel about having been involved in it.
Yeah, well, see, he's coach of Barbados Pride, which is like the first class side.
But you're not going to say who it is. But you're giving us enough clues.
Sorry, Emerson Trotman is. Emerson
Trotman. Sorry, right, yeah.
He's the coach of the Barbados Pride side. So, in some ways, he probably had something to lose. But he told me that he was a professional, and that if he was a professional, he deserves to be paid. So that's how that kind of panned out. So the next morning, I wake up in my little hotel room. I look out, and I see the azure blue sea. I see it's beautiful, and sunshine everywhere. There are palm trees, the golden sands, and I felt like crap, because I'd been rejected twice that previous night, and it was a really, really tough moment for me. And so what I did was I elected to go on a tour of Bridgetown, the sort of historical Bridgetown. And what happened was the tour guide, a guy called Trevor Marshall, just happens to be a cricket fan and a very erudite historian, And so the tour in itself was fantastic. But afterwards, he took me to a game at Queen's Park Oval, which is probably about 10 minutes walk from the centre of Bridgetown, and the famous Spartan Cricket Club. So he took me to the pavilion, the Walcott stand. I looked at all the memorabilia, and it was just great to be out and about. And all of a sudden I was recharged, and I was back into it, and I had my mojo back, and I was like, okay, I can get out there again and start calling these guys up and telling them I'm here, and the whole thing. So it was back in train. But that was probably my toughest moment, I'd say. When I was
quite lucky in a way that you had a very positive experience to follow the negative one. It's almost like it sounds like it sort of recharged you when you needed it. The shot in the arm. What about you, Anindo? Was there any moments when you thought, "Oh God, I'm not going to do this"?
Well, I think the interviewing part is always difficult because it's unpredictable. Like Ashley was saying, it depends. You don't really know the person, right? You know the person as a cricketer. You don't know what the person is like face to face, or even on the phone. And sometimes by email or text. It can be bad on any medium. I think in the beginning it was a bit challenging mentally when people would refuse to speak or be rude, and you'd wonder why that was so, because first, I'm not sure there were 1,000 people walking around wanting to know their story anymore, to be brutally frank.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you're not necessarily trying to say something which is going to be construed as bad against them. Of course, they don't do that, and that sometimes worked in my favor, where because I'm not a journalist, I have no pretensions of being one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people treat me much more neutrally, if you like, and are happy to talk to me more than they would do a journalist, because they just have such bad experience with certain journalists.
Yeah.
Journalists often have an angle.
Yeah. So
not always favourable. If you're
I've
the
learned
subject.
to tell exactly. So I've learned to tell people that look, I'm just a writer. I'm just telling a story. I have no intention, and you can go back and read my previous books. I have no intention of making judgments when I write something. I might have my views, but they're not judgments, and they will always be backed either by someone else's quote or by facts. If I ever say negative about something negative about someone, so that's. But then what happened after a while is I've just sort of got used to. Now nobody's literally asked me to F off, but they've said that in not so many words. But I've sort of got used to the fact that let's just move on. As long as I've got enough secondary sources for this person and this person does not want to talk to me, I'm not going to get put off by this. I'm just going to move on and talk to someone else who is willing to talk and who's willing to give me stories. And my experience, again, is that like Ashley was saying, sometimes it's so much easier to get stories from people who were not central to the theme, if you like. And they have so many more stories to tell which have not been told before. And for me, that's really interesting because then you take that and that makes it something different from what a journalist could have written about during that time. It's an angle which I enjoy.
So I'm a bit conscious of time. Not least because I want to be able to get this edited into something we can use next week during the Aussie games. But there is a question I wanted definitely to ask you about, a couple more questions I wanted to ask you both. One is, writers and influencers for you, people who have influenced you in what they've written and how they've written it. Well, at least one